Greetings and welcome to House of R, a Ringerverse podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Mallory Rubin. Joining me today to ask, really? It's an assignment. Calibrate your enthusiasm. It's Joanna Robinson.
Hi, Mallory Rubin. Sit down, get comfortable. We're going to try to get through 3 episodes of very dense television on one podcast. Pray for us to whatever deity you prefer.
We've recorded 4-hour pods before. I've never been so anxious about a runtime as I am sitting down to do this today. We could do 10 hours on these episodes easily, and yet we're going to try not to. Let's see how it goes. Very quickly, Joe, we've got a lot cooking over here on House of R, over on the Ringerverse, on Prestige TV, everywhere. It's a busy time. Here's what everybody needs to know. We're covering Andor. The Midnight Boys, pew, pew. We'll have instant reactions up every Wednesday. We will have our House of R deep dives up, depending on your time zone, very late on Thursday nights or waiting for you when you wake up on Friday mornings. We are also, of course, all covering Last of Us. So you can get the Midnight Boys, pew, pew, instant reactions.
Yeah.
Sunday nights. Our deep dives, Monday evenings. The Watch, checking in on Mondays. Joe and Rob are checking in on Prestige TV with interviews, with game talk, with spoiler dives, all of it. And then Ben and Daniel on Button Mash are doing gamer guides. Robust. But that's not all because it's Thunderbolts week. We're excited. We're going to pod about Thunderbolts tomorrow. Thunderbolts we can't wait.
Rules. I'm so excited. I'm going again tonight. I can't wait.
Same. Thrilled. Joanna, it's a lot. How can everybody follow along?
Subscribe to the pod.
Yep.
It's a great idea on your
there
favorite
you
podcaster of choice. Why not? Follow us on social, on whatever social media platform that you enjoy. And of course, email us hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. Yes. Thank you for all of the truthers out there who agree with me that Cinta flipped the speeder over to dump Tay out. I mean,
a lot. You have a lot of support.
I have a lot of support. I think it's canon now. I think we've all decided. Is that how that works? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think once the show presents like a mystery accident, why not? Speaking of which, spoiler warning. We will, of course, be going beat by beat, in depth, deep through Andor's second arc of season 2. We're talking about episodes 4, 5, and 6 today. But if it's ever happened in Andor previously this season 1, it's fair game today. Guess what? If it's ever happened anywhere in Star Wars, it could potentially come up today. That's the spoiler warning.
So there's a thing that we're trying to be a little cautious about because, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We might give you 1 or 2 of our trademark. If you don't want to hear this, hit fast forward twice, you know? We might. We'll see. We'll see how the spirit moves us. Pretty friendly space on the spoiler front today, outside of a couple spots.
Yeah.
Joe, those are the programming reminders. Anything else before we dive in?
I don't think so. I'm just so excited. I didn't think anything could. I don't know if this tops Aldhani, but it's like as good as Aldhani was, and that is wild to me. So let's do it.
All right, let's get right to the opening snapshot. Joanna.
Hi.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6. Ever been to Ghorman? I have friends everywhere. And what a festive evening. All of these were once again directed, just like the first arc of season 2, by Ariel Kleiman and written by Narkina 5 arc legend, Beau Wilmon. You already teased that you think these episodes, which are set in 3 BBY, so 1 full year after arc 1, are among the best things Andor has ever done.
Correct.
What other, give us a quick little taste of any other opening snapshot thoughts that you want us to carry with us before we head into our deep dive?
Yeah, just some big picture thoughts, I guess. Working inside the system versus working outside the system. I think, like, at what time do you just abandon any attempt to work inside the system and have to make your calls from the outside? This idea that no one is safe. We talked about this a little bit last week, but like, not just with losing Cinta, which we'll talk about at length when we get to it, but really just watching this, knowing that like Cassian and Mon Mothma and a couple, Bail Organa, good to see you. Like a couple other people are going to make it to Rogue One, but it feels so unsafe for everyone else. And so knowing that we're barreling 2 weeks away from the end of this show existing, which means in 2 weeks, a lot of players are either going to get like retired to a farm like B2 or you know, killed. And that's makes for exciting television. Something I was talking to someone about was, and I know I bring up Better Call Saul a lot, and it's not a Ringerverse property, but it is like a really great, excellent example of a prequel. There's a character in that show, Kim Wexler. And we were just sort of like, where is Kim in Breaking Bad? Does Kim Wexler die? Kim Wexler lives, etc. And that is just where I am with Bix. I'm like, what is happening with Bix?
Yeah.
Is she going to be okay? Are they going to figure out a way that doesn't involve killing her to like, you know, what is going to happen there? It's constantly on my mind. And then last but not least, I will say, you know, there's the idea of strange bedfellows inside of a rebellion, but there's also the idea of like, and what Andor has always been so good at is not being able to distinguish between the bad guys and the good guys, and especially true here when Luthen wants the same thing that Dedra and Partagaz want.
Identical plans.
I'm just
identical.
The exact same thing.
It's worrying. Would you say that he's condemned to use the tools of his enemy, Joe?
One might.
To defeat them?
You know, I'm not wearing a billowing cloak and standing on a catwalk, but if I were, I would say that.
You could absolutely. Could absolutely wear a billowing cloak on a catwalk. You could wear a billowing cloak in your fucking living room.
Do you know that I have a billowing cloak that Jomi got me that matches his billowing cloak that we're going to wear? We have matching cloaks that we're going to wear on.
Is this for Ringer
the
Quest?
Next Ringer Quest that we do. Yeah.
Jeez.
I'm excited.
Filing this one away. Time to prep a costume.
Yeah, you need a cloak, man.
My costume will be a bottle of whiskey and a stuffed animal. Scotch, the cat, you know?
Yeah,
That's
I love that. I love that.
And then comfortable wide leg pants and a t-shirt.
What are the big picture things that you want to hit before we get into deep dive?
Dude, let me say this. I fucking loved these episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love this show. It's so good. I thought this arc was incredible. I will, wait until the end of season 2 to like offer any sort of official power ranking of the arcs. But I agree with you. I thought this was up there with Aldani and up there with Narkina 5 from season 1. I think this is one of the strongest stretches that the show has delivered. And certainly one of the richest and dense in a good way, a chewy, meaty way that will reward infinite rewatches.
Yes.
Like going through this just a few times, seeing it for the first time without knowing what is to come. Obviously, we know what's to come in like Rogue One, but in the final, I can't believe you said it. It sent me to a dark place. 2 weeks of the show. Christ, good Lord. I already can't wait to like revisit this entire series in full. I thought these episodes were really exquisite. A lot of wonderful lines and memorable scenes. The Saw Gerrera.
You've been saying the phrase
scene.
Huffing Rhydo as much as you possibly can. Yeah, as much as you possibly can.
I've been texting it to you, emailing it to you. I might have sent you a voice memo. I can't even remember. I thought that was one of the best scenes in Star Wars history. Like, genuinely. I thought it was incredible.
I love that.
I just loved it. Oh, man. Great stuff. In terms of those like big ideas and things that I'm excited to keep track of today as we go, once again, just a number of them because this is such a rich and nuanced text. I think this idea of very top of mind for us already as we cover Last of Us, this idea of pairs, this idea of groups within groups. And when you're us, perhaps makes the other larger us that you are a part of feel like a them. And what happens when there is maybe a figure like, I don't know, one of our favorite characters in the history of television, Luthen, who at various times across these episodes makes Cassian and Bix, Vel and Cinta, even briefly Mon and Vel feel like even though he is their leader and they are a part of his squad, like he is inserting a wedge between them, parallel in a briefer, shorter way with Partagaz and Syril and Dedra because they're a duo and a team and they're in cahoots on this fantastic mission. And then Party's like, remember not to tell him everything, so this is like a real through line across the different character sets. I think also this idea of rushing. We have it with Luthen and Lonnie. We have it with Cassian and the Ghorman front. Even just like, I'm excited to talk about the idea of Aldani and Ghorman as like a tail of the tape head to head with what that shows us about the clock the rebellion is operating under in terms of how those missions unfolded.
Yeah.
Limburg, old Ben Limburgi wrote a wonderful piece for TheRigger.com. What a great website about this arc. And he really like explored this idea of the clock that the show is on and that the characters are on this point in the canon timeline. I think also just this idea of like information overload, right? It's too much to take in.
Yes. Multiple.
That's what she said.
Wow.
Luthen and Clea, the ISB.
Yeah. Both sides feel that way.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just
and
simply too much
to take in. Both sides can feel that way. It can just be too much sometimes to take in. And then this idea that my guy saw so memorably imparts, revolution's not for the sane. And you can hear it in such an extreme circumstance, but then think of maybe where it applies elsewhere and the other characters who are navigating or confronting that and then making their way through it anyway. Cassian, what does he think of what the Ghorman front is doing and what Luthen wants them to do? Saw and Will and everything that unfolds in that scene. Even Mon, like trying to engender support for her pursuits. She meets resistance endlessly. Mm-hmm. Every corner she turns to, Clea and Lonnie, all of it. So I love the big picture themes that you sketched out. It's just like the fact that we can, before we even start going through the episode, identify like 8 to 10 big ideas is just incredible. What a gift this show is.
I love
it.
Several documentaries on the French Resistance.
The French Resistance. I had a moment where when I was putting the outline together, I was like, should I add a, but nope, Joe's got it. I definitely know Joe's taking us to French Resistance Corner. I have literally never been more certain of anything in my life.
But I mean, what a cool thing for like a Star Wars show to inspire, you know? It's just like, I feel very, like, it's such a, it is a gift.
It is a gift. Okay, should we dive deep? Should we do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, Joe. This week we are once again going to group by location, character set, plotline. This was like a little harder than last week because even inside of, say, a relationship like Luthen and Cassian, they belong in 2 different sets of the outline. We did our best. We're doing our best. We might bob and weave a bit, but we're going to try to keep it as lumped as we can. And we're going to start today with our Coruscant. I don't know why I said it that way. Yep. Coruscant. Like it's like a croissant.
Like a
from a, it's the pastry Gorst walked back to his lab with. A Coruscant. It'd be delicious.
Like the cronut of
exactly.
Coruscant. Yeah.
Do you like a cronut?
No.
Oh.
Do you like a cronut?
Interesting. It's not my favorite thing, but I've dabbled. I've dabbled with a cronut before. As you know, I'm a baked goods enthusiast, and I like to think about, texture, the buttery lamination, as I learned on Great British Bake Off. I don't know how to bake. Anyway, we're going to start on Coruscant with Bix, Cassian, Luthen, and Gorst. And we're going to start with another dream of Dr. Gorst, but this is a different one because Bix has risen out of bed and moved forward, drawn her blaster, primed it. It's like an immersive dream, a waking nightmare.
No, thank you.
And it's a pass for me. Yeah, I agree.
I'm so sorry to already take us back because we have so far to go. I do need to know how you, Mallory Rubin, BBY enthusiast, felt about like how this chunk starts, letting us know that it's 3 BBY, and then we hear the Ferrix chime, right?
Yeah.
Which we heard at the top of the last arc. And it's just like, I love that, like, in terms of that clock concept that you're talking about with Ben, like, the idea that we're using that to mark the time is just really dreamy to me. So,
I love that. It was cool also in the next episode to like open with snippets of the radio calls and to get like Ryloth and Corellia and these other locations that we associate with some key figure or figures in Rebellion. That was very fun as well. Yeah, those little details are great.
I think the way that Ferrix is still alive for these characters, these 3 key characters who we have that are left from Ferrix is wonderful.
Can't wait to check in with B.
Yeah.
And find out how he's carrying Ferrix with him.
Yeah.
If we don't see B again, let's not talk about it. But my take. Bix is in a safe house in Coruscant. This is where she and Cassian are staying. And she walks toward Gorst in this dream state. And she sees not just Gorst, but a soldier. a soldier who she and Cassian killed on their mission. And I thought this was fascinating because Gorst speaks to Bix in this dream. It's like he's this virus still who is embedded inside of her that she needs to like sweat and burn out. And he says, I know you wanted him to live, but Cassian said he'd seen your face. So, and the way that Gorst is positioned there over this victim with like the lolling head, like Bix had been in the chair, like we had seen others, Will's dad, and is in the exact place we would find him. But then Bix is also positioned above this person who she feels responsible for harming. She is directly opposed to Gorst, aiming a blaster at him. Bix is not Gorst. Gorst is the villain. Gorst is the horror who haunts her dreams. But there's someone else in that state who is a victim too. I thought that was just like fascinating framing and a fascinating thing for Bix's mind to be exploring.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think what's also worth noting throughout this whole thing, as we go through this season where we're hopping an entire year, we have a lot of catch up that we have to do, and the way in which, you know, Bo Wilmon and whoever else worked on these scripts did to, you know, Cinta will talk about what happened like directly. Yeah. But in this, just right away, we understand that Cassian and Bix are now running missions together.
Yes.
You know, and then Cassian will say, it's been, you know, another one. It's been a while, you know, and sort of like let us know she's been having these recurring dreams. We saw her have one like a year ago, but she's been having them this whole time. And so there are little moments like that throughout where it's just sort of like a nod to the passage of time or what happened in the last year, in a way that doesn't feel like the whole thing is stopping. It's just very elegant, the way that it's sort of like sifted in. And then I think what's interesting about Cassian talking to her about how long it's been that she's having these dreams is this idea, again, as we talk about like the lingering impact of trauma, this idea that there is a timeline. There isn't. Like there isn't it's like, oh, well, in 2 years exactly, you'll be fine. And like, you know, Gorst, of course, promised that it would sort of linger with her forever. But this idea that Cassian, who just wants to fix it for her, but can't, is like, what timeline are we operating on here? How long are we going to be doing this? You know?
Right. Yeah. I think that observation about how it obviously requires a ton of hard work, but seemingly for us effortlessly, the show allows us to feel like we inhabited the spaces that we missed. It's just like masterful. You and Chris, we were texting about this with Chris the last night. I'm like struggling to think of another example of a story that's done this deftly, where we are missing these huge swaths of time. And like, okay, even this, right? We didn't meet that soldier. We didn't go on this mission.
We didn't see this mission, but we know what happened. Yeah.
But we understand everything of substance about it.
And it's
incredible.
This is something that Bo has always done really well in all of his work, is that something is doing 5 different things at once. So it's letting us know what happened on the mission here, but it's not just letting us know what happened on the mission. It's letting us know Bix's state of mind. It's letting us know where Bix and Cassian are not aligned in their work for the inside of the rebellion. It tells us where Bix is on sort of like her moral spectrum. Yeah. It speaks to isolation and all kinds of things. Similarly, not to jump ahead, but like, when Edie is talking to Syril about him being sent to Ghorman.
Astonishing stuff. Just an incredible scene.
So she's belittling him, but also telling us what has happened. You've been put on the shelf. This is you broke up with your girlfriend. I can't believe this happened. All this sort of stuff. And meanwhile, that one Skype call is both the audio that we hear as he moves through, so we're getting to see the town as he's moving. Yeah. And it's a plot device because he's doing theater on that call for whoever's listening. So it's operating on like multiple
levels. Yeah.
It's a cronut. You know what I mean? It's laminated. Exactly. It's like everything is laminated.
So many
buttery
folds in the pastry.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. To that point of like establishing the different motivations even inside of a group, I thought, we have just the pure like horror of Gorst, who got everything that he deserved at the end of this arc, saying like, I forgot to ask his name. Might be a little late now. I thought that was so chilling. Yeah. But then he says this thing to Bix. He says, everyone has their own rebellion, right? And this idea of your own rebellion, this tracks with how we've discussed Andor the entire time, right? We talked about this a lot last week, like factions within factions, this ongoing theme. But this question of like, what motivates you?
Mm-hmm.
What is your primary driver, but also where is your line?
Yeah.
Is so central in these episodes. And I love, like you're identifying early, we have that here with Bix and Cassian, and then Bix and Cassian give it to us with Luthen, and it builds and builds and builds and builds, right? We have it with Luthen's group and the Ghorman front, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this idea of like how lasting can any source of unity be when everybody has their own rebellion? And like, then how do you balance that? How do you balance the shared pursuit of taking down the Empire with whatever your rebellion is? I think that the show's ongoing interest in that it is, a consistent pursuit from day one, but has maybe never been as artfully explored as in these 3 episodes.
Can I take us one just toe dip into French Resistance corner?
Yeah.
It was interesting to me to learn about all the different factions inside of the French Resistance, that there was like the communist faction and like a Catholic faction and the youth movement and all this other stuff like that. And they were working as little disparate cells until they were united by a massacre that happened in Burgundy. So like an atrocity, but also this idea that Germany wanted to conscript the people of France into basically labor camps. And so it was like an active discomfort that was uncomfortable enough for all these disparate groups to find common cause and say, okay, we have to just like figure this out because this outside threat,
Right.
One would hope that some of the other atrocities would have pushed them in that direction, but oftentimes it is only until it comes to your door that people figure out when to move and how to move.
Right.
And this is what Luthen's been saying from the start, right? We need to make it so uncomfortable for them,
right?
That
that's what he's been trying to spark.
They will do something.
What did you make of the way that they discussed the physical place that they were in and what it was doing to them emotionally, psychologically? I thought this was so interesting. This idea that Bix presents that like, it's when I relax, that's when this resurfaces. And you know how deeply real that feels, like you're with yourself and you're with your memories and you're with your fear. And that is when the trauma that has always been there maybe really like roots its claws into you again. And like the way that acknowledgement from Bix was paired with this pursuit of basically like routine and like the mundane things. Well, let's put the window treatments up, and hey, does anybody else stay here? Like, if not, can we leave some stuff? Can we get some plates? Can we get some towels? There's just the, again, very like Andor-y. We talked about this last week with the level of like specific detail. Okay, we're gonna make sure you understand what is in every cabinet here, or if you don't know, it feels like you know. But also, and like the fact that in Star Wars people are just talking about towels and plates. But obviously, then beyond that, there's this question of like, Cassian and Bix will talk later about how this isn't what they want. This isn't where they want to be. But they can carry 2 truths at once, and like, this isn't where they want to be. This isn't the life they want to be living. But the sense of impermanence and like the inhospitable nature of this place that they know is where you hide when someone is pursuing you is bringing all of this further to the fore in a way that feels very debilitating.
I think for someone like Cassian, who has spent so much time on the run, hiding out, doing these various things, has gone to multiple prisons at this point in his life. It's one thing. But for someone like Bix, who was so ensconced in the Ferrix community, like when we met that town, we understood they were all in each other's lives and they all knew each other. And then you pull her out of that, and then she goes to Mina Rao, which is like a less cozy version of that for her because of the fear that they're experiencing. But she and Will and Brasso still make a home together, and they're, Cass is out on missions, but this is the home unit. We're also in the community here. We're getting to know people. We've put Marva's painting on the wall. We have made a home for ourselves. And now she's isolated in a safe house. And when Cass goes on a mission that she's not invited on, she's left watching daytime television and eating Chinese takeout and like doing a full depression. I see you, Bix. I see you, girl. I associate myself with you, but like she's isolated. And this is what, as we talk about what an empire, what a fascist movement does, this is what they do, is that they destroy community. Right. They do not want you in common cause with people around you. They want to destroy your individual culture and identity, and they want to destroy your sense of community and just keep you in a fear space of isolation. Right. So and that's where we find Bix,
Like even when last week in Arc 1, when Kroll said, this doesn't seem very permanent, and Bix said, we like it, right? Because they had built something, like you're saying. And then later in these episodes when Bix and Cassian are talking about the space shop or the park.
The bodega. Yeah.
Yeah. And the bodega or like the park. And, the idea of like, well, wait, if the craziness of the city keeps us safe, then why can't we go walk around in a place that makes me happy? And like that tension, the Empire preying on that and making it feel like even in the places where you have found yourself, because in theory you can cultivate safety there, you feel more alone and unsure than you would anywhere else. It's just like, how could you ever settle in and foster any true stability from which you could then build like purpose? So it's just like completely unmooring.
And that's why as we move towards, inside of these episodes, we go to, is it pronounced Dakar? Yeah, Dakar. Which will serve as the rebel base on the sequel trilogy. And we've already been to Yavin, which serves as the rebel base. This idea of like, here's the home for the rebellion.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is what we're moving towards, is like stability for this unstable, shaky, separated rebellion, which I love.
Chopper base, still my fave.
Sure.
Of all the bases. Let's go to the space shop. Let's go to the bodega because it's time for a little home-cooked meal. And even this presents problems. Even this sparks debate. They argue, Bix and Cassian, over which shop to go to. This isn't the one Cassian thought Bix meant. He wants to look in the bag before they go in. She says,
he's like, not this Trader Joe's. Not this Trader Joe's. You can never get parking here.
So just Los Angeles then. I can't sleep. You can't shop. The mission is dinner. I think we can handle it. And I thought this was really great because, as is often the case throughout these 3 episodes, he's not always right. And there's plenty to interrogate, and we will. But often his reservation is in some way validated by something that someone else is doing. So like the very lovely seeming vendor at the shop recognizes Bix, is like, hey, where you been? I haven't seen you in a while. And Cassian's like, fuck, people know who we are. Now, that guy didn't rat them out, but this worry that they will be recognized and imperiled is like a thing to be considering. Did the darling little space crab in the cage behind the register recognize them, do you think? Also, if you are on the run from the Empire, do you think it's helpful to be less hot than Cassian and Bix are?
I was going to say, it must be hard to hide when you look like Adria Arjona. She's so beautiful. No matter what.
These are lovely for a lovely lady. It's like,
put down, doesn't matter. Okay, here's what's true about the Coruscant bodega that I found out. So Helen Player, who's one of the set deck department buyers, spent 6 months acquiring hundreds of items to stock the shelves of the Coruscant bodega. I just think this is like one of the most impressive sets I've ever seen. Like it was so
it's really cool
for one scene. 6 months of prep. This is what I'm talking about, Andor. This is what I'm talking about.
It's incredible.
I thought this was a great scene. And I think also inside of the way in which it is a larger conversation about 2 dashing, members of the rebellion, it's a couple fight also.
Yes, totally.
They're just like, I want plates and curtains. I don't want to go to this Trader Joe's. Like, it's just sort of, I just really like the domesticity that's laced into this larger part of it.
When Cassian actually cooks in the basically Breville air fryer.
I
wrote, Bix is like, this is pretty good.
I wrote intergalactic hibachi, but I like.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. And to your point, when she's like, yeah, it's better than me, and he's like, I'm not touching that.
No, yeah, exactly.
I'm not confirming that.
That's a trap, is what he said. Yeah.
And like they're, their relationship, like the depth of their affection for each other is so crucial to what is unfolding here. Now, it is romantic in this case. We talked about this last week, right? Is the like, my husband is coming back. Is that real? Is that a cover story? What is clear here is that they have rekindled their former romance and they are deeply and fully devoted to each other. And the
Deeply
passion is so palpable. Yeah. Throughout the episodes, like
that she's I regret any moment we didn't spend together.
Yeah, the kiss when he came back from the mission, I was like, have we ever seen something this like passionate and a galaxy far, far away? Before I was just like, so deep, that kiss.
You're saying number one Harrison Ford.
It's a different vibe.
Han and Leia? Okay, anyway.
It's a different vibe. It's a different vibe.
I think that...
one that I cherish, but it's a different vibe.
I think that the question of whether or not they're married actually is irrelevant. She calls him her husband again in the shop, and it's just like, they're married. Like, whether or not they had a ceremony, they're married. They are each other's person. This is it, Which, again, I ask, what does this do to our feelings about Jyn Erso and Rogue One? I don't know. Like, we'll have to see how it all plays out,
Yeah. Yeah. On that idea of, like, the clock... As they're doing meal prep, Bix is cleaning the blasters and notes of the tarnish is set in. And Cassian's like, it's fine, we needed the rest. But it did feel, even though it was a quick beat, like a contrast to so many of the other characters across the 3 episodes who were like, let's go. We got to move with haste. We got to move with the quickness. And Cassian, who, of course, is like the Ghorman front, they're impatient.
Too fast.
They're going too fast. He's like, it's fine to slow down. So he is kind of like a counterweight to the Miss Minutes action all around them in this episode.
Yeah.
And then Bix broaches the soldier in the nightmare. What will Cassian tell Luthen? This was like a fascinating conversation across a couple scenes here. Cassian says basically at first, we won. Luthen cares about results. Like, we don't need to worry about any of it. He's very cold and clear in the calculus here about the soldier. You put on the uniform, you take your chances, which is obviously not where Bix is currently. Now, at the end of the 3rd episode of this arc, she will charge out of the Imperial complex that she is in and shoot the guard without hesitation. But right here with this kid's face in her dream, that's not where she is. And Cassian channels a little bit of Kathleen, a little bit of The Last of Us. Kids die, Henry. They die all the time. He says, not everybody knows it yet, but it's happening, meaning the war. We're at war. Yeah. People die. They die all the time. He doesn't say that part. I wonder if he knew, Bix says. And Cassian replies, well, he does now. And I thought that was one of the most chilling things I had ever heard. And you brought up this question last week of something for us to be keeping in mind across the entire season is, where is Cassian on the journey to where we find him in Rogue One in terms of the moral complexity? Now, Cassian takes pains to say here, like, Imperial soldier, this is a foe. So it's not the same thing as Tivik, but it is still interesting to think about this question of, like, when is any action justified through the lens of who you're trying to save, whether that's a person you love, yourself, the pursuit of a crucial mission, all of it. So just felt like an interesting kind of marker on that timeline.
I love thinking about that. Something that Diego Luna said about, when he gets to play act on Ghorman, act as a designer, is that we really want to think about how much he has learned from Luthen in the intervening years and how much closer he's getting to Luthen. So when we see him put on finery and this sort of like demeanor, that's a Luthen move. And so that this sort of like, well, he does now, that callousness, that's a Luthen influence as well. So
absolutely. Yeah. How would you compare Cassian's Varian Skye slicked back hair to the Luthen gallery wig? I have a wig specific question coming for you, actually, so you feel free to save it if you want.
We did get emails about Luthen's little wig. Vulture wrote a whole piece about his little wig. The slick back hair is wonderful.
Sensational stuff.
Simply great.
Absolutely sensational stuff. So they sit to eat. This is where Bix asks about the walk the next day, and this sparks a larger conversation about Cassian's instinct and impulse to protect, right? And how that is manifesting. Cassian is, I thought this was, again, a great, like, scenes, ... for a marriage conversation, to your point, because Cassian is like, I don't I do not understand what the problem is. Like, I want you to be safe. I don't want to lose you again.
Yeah.
Why is that wrong? Why is that
Simple.
bad?
Yeah.
And Bix says it's warping things. You killed that guy, not because we're at war, but because he saw my face, because I was in peril, period. That was what led you to make the decision that you made. And Cassian says, what's the difference? And this is like so Joel-coded as we cover Last of Us.
If you're not watching The Last of Us, let me tell you, there's a lot of chocolate in the peanut butter here today. Yeah.
God. Yeah. Like, Bix above all, right? And one of the things we've loved talking about in Last of Us, which is also interesting to discuss here, is like, it doesn't necessarily mean the impulse is wrong. If the impulse is to like protect, nurture, ensure someone's security and safety because you love them and you want them to be okay, that can be noble, that can be good. But where is the tipping point when the other person feels like, where is my agency in this? This is not what I want. This isn't how I want it. Like, I want your trust.
Yeah.
I want you to believe that I'm okay. I want to feel empowered. If it is a war, which you say it is, to have an active hand in shaping it and guiding it. I want to win. And so that's where we build over these episodes to Bix being out there with Cassian at the end, enacting her vengeance directly.
On the one hand, I agree with that. On the other hand, I think what's really important for Bix here is that she not feel like a burden or infantilized or like she's being coddled, I guess, because she's going through this thing. She's traumatized. She's having these nightmares, but she doesn't want Cassian to not think of her as an equal. So when Luthen comes later and she's like, I mean, is Cassian think I'm not ready for a mission? Right. Like, what the fuck is happening? And he's like, no. Yeah. So I think what she just wants above other things is to be a partner. And so when they not only go on the mission together at the end of this arc for them, but he's like, she's in there alone, you know, and he's not coddling her on that mission. And he's just sort of like, this is all you, baby. Go for it. You know, I think that's something that is very important for her.
Yeah, like the way that revenge was simultaneously hers alone and then also shared was I thought really cool. What did you think of invoking Marva and the sister here? Just the fact that the sister is mentioned again, but also like in general kind of calling upon these formative influences for and wounds in Cassian's life that maybe have a bearing on how he thinks about the risk of harm befalling somebody close to him.
Yeah. Again, she's just like, I'm not an old woman in a chair and I'm not a literal child that you, like a little tiny child you once protected. I'm your partner. Like, treat me as such. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. I also thought, like, let's put respect on Marva's name. She rallied Ferrix.
You're right. I apologize.
I can't speak to what the sister achieved.
I just always think about Marva's recliner, which just looked very comfortable.
It really did. Did you think that this mention of the sister was just kind of one last wink, like we didn't forget that there was a sister, but you're never going to learn anything more? Or do you think we're going to actually learn anything?
I don't know. We got an email about that last week. Of like, do we think Cass trying to find his sister? Marva at the end of last season is like, forget about it. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like we'll never learn.
Maybe.
And that's part of the point. It's like sometimes you don't get all the answers, but I don't know. We'll find out. Luthen is very present in this relationship.
Yeah.
And when he asks Cassian to take the Ghorman mission, which we will talk about all of that in the Ghorman section when we get there, Cassian's like, what about Bix? And Luthen says, no, not this time. You got to go alone. Bix will be fine. You don't know that. And we get this little beautiful parting before Luthen comes to visit Bix once Cassian is gone with like the...
Okay, so the passionate kissing is great.
The finger dancing on the hands.
I was wondering if this is like a Phyrexian tradition because they were making parallel patterns. This is not just like we're gently caressing each other's hands. It's like we're doing a ritual of sorts. And I was wondering if it was a Ferrix ritual. Maybe even like, do you do this when you hand fast, when you get married on Ferrix? Is this like a wedding vow? Not that they were like getting married, but like this is just a sort of like a devoted, I don't know. It felt very culturally specific, and it felt very, this is us. This is our culture that we're bringing with us elsewhere, which I really loved.
I love that. And hands were so central in Ferrix, like the wall of gloves for the workers, and obviously like the banging of the klaxon or the ringing of the bells as a way to signal their fellows in the community. And, you know, even this, like both of them are mechanics working with their hands. There was like such not only an intimacy, but just like a sweetness and a tenderness to this. I love that question from you of like, could this connect to their shared history in this common place that they miss and left behind?
They
that
lost.
Would be beautiful.
And the score was beautiful here too. Really,
the
really
score
gorgeous.
Was so, dude. When the score cranked in, when it was time to huff gas. Whoa!
Mention number 2. How many times can you talk about Huff and Rhino before we get there?
What if you had to guess right now?
5 more times, but we'll see.
Oh, that seems low. I'm taking the over.
Okay.
So 5 more? So 7? No way.
Okay.
Over. Taking the over. Well, I guess it's a polluted sample because I'm in control of it.
Yeah.
When Cassian leaves, we see Bix alone, looking out that window, out at this cold city, a dark, rainy night, and we see her open a little vial of blue liquid, a little dropper, and take this sedative that she and Luthen will discuss. So we are like remaining in a very serious and very heavy place in general, and like with Bix in particular. This is not like spice, action, adventure, like space drug stuff. This is
you want to buy some dust sticks,
right? Yeah, this is really heavy,
and it closes out the episode. And you know, Adria Arjona, like when she takes the drops and she's just sort of like, you know, zones out looking out the window. That is like a dark place to leave the episode.
Much so.
Yeah.
The later scene when watching the Good Morning Coruscant, which you mentioned, that was just like a fully like strung out kind of visual, like really intense. Let's talk about this Luthen scene. Luthen come in when Cassian is gone.
Those are the only circumstances under which you would watch Good Morning Coruscant?
That to me, that really felt like the TV stayed on.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Like you finished watching, you were watching, and then some other program kicked in. I don't know if Bix is a Mafi and Toffee loyalist. Hard to say. That was a kind of funny way for us to get the Senate.
That's what I'm saying. It was like 3 levels because it came out of the Edie. Like you hear it and you think this is something Edie's watching because we already know that Edie is like watching Fox News all the time, and so like
always
is this
loves
something
that Imperial News?
Yeah, is this something that Edie's watching? No, it's Bix who's watching it. So then we learn something about Bix, which is like, oh my God, she's watching Good Morning Coruscant, and then meanwhile we're learning about the parties that are
80 dinners. Just wait till Perrin chimes in.
Yeah.
Just wait till Perrin chimes in on the scheduling. Luthen's here, and the moment where we'll get a moment later when Cassian comes back.
Were you scared? Were you so scared after what happened with Tay last arc? I was like, is Luthen going to just kill Bix right now?
There was that. There was the fear of what Luthen might do to Bix. There was also us briefly experiencing Bix's terror. Like, what does it mean if Luthen is knocking at the door? Is he here to tell me Cassian is dead? Yeah. And then later when Cassian gets home and knocks and nobody answers at first, like they were really ratcheting up our fear over whether one of them might at some point return and find the other one gone. I was worried.
What if Luthen? Yeah, because we know that obviously Andor has plot armor. We know he survives, but what if Luthen lied to her and say Cassian's dead and gets her to leave, and then they never see each other again or something like that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it'd be horrible. Actually, a fascinating thing to keep in mind as we like break down this scene, because one of the things that struck me was that when Bix asks what you already mentioned, when she was like, wait, did he like say, what's he saying? Like, I'm good, I'm ready. Luthen could have been like, yeah, actually, he said you weren't good, but that's not what he does. Like, he very deliberately takes he charts a subtler course in this conversation where like, it doesn't seem like he is seeking to actively spark dissension in the ranks. Like, he knows that if he says to Bix, like, yeah, Cassian's out there talking shit, that's not going to like pass the smell test probably, even though she is worried about how he's viewing her right now. But this particular path still leads to this massive argument that they have later, and like the way that Luthen works, and then the thing ultimately that he says to Cassian, which is basically like, you both failed my test. Just like diabolical. I loved it.
Like
Genuinely
he was
loved
like
it.
disappointing, right?
Yeah. It's the second time today you've disappointed me.
Yeah.
Like just incredible stuff.
You're not little tools that I like. You're a tight unit, and I have to figure out how to make
you actually
that work.
both think that the other person's more important than the cause. That is not what I was hoping for at this point.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. They kind of like make small talk about this safe house. Luthen's like, yeah, I've been here before. Oh, the nights in Coruscant, the hiding. And Bix says, never ends, does it, all the hiding? And Luthen replies, it will. We'll bring them down or die trying. What else is there? Now, we are familiar with this position of Luthen's. We know this is his worldview at this point, right?
Yeah.
This is the like famous speech to Lonnie, what do I sacrifice? Everything. But it was, I thought, still helpful to like have the idea directly reinforced in this storyline of these episodes, because it's the question that is it's the wedge between Cassian and Luthen. They're aligned in so many ways, but like, what else is there? Well, Cassian would say there is something else for him right now. It's Bix. Vel and Cinta would say there is something else, actually. And like for Cinta, she had to work to that place of recognition. So this is not something that Luthen's lieutenants share with him at this point in the story, which feels very notable and like a real source of tension across these episodes.
And the thing that's interesting about Cassian is that he's never going to be that guy. Yeah, we meet him in a callous place at the beginning of Rogue One, but the partnership that he forms with Jyn and then the larger crew as they go, like, yes, the cause is important and it's about the cause, and he supports her because she radicalizes herself to the cause and stuff like that. But like, he's a guy, he's a lover, he's a carer, you know what I mean? Like that's who Cassian Andor will always be. So
yeah, like the decision that he makes when they're staring down at her father and he's in sniper position, right? Like, so like there's it's always going to remain a test for him. He'll always have to decide what he thinks about this and what he's ready to sacrifice or not. I love that part of it. Well, what did you make of this moment when Luthen finds the drugs and Bix says basically, I know what you just found.
She's like, give me, give it back, dude.
You were here for a mission and something changed your mind.
Yeah. And he was like sharp as always, right? Like he's like, you
Haven't
can read
lost your
people.
eye.
Yeah. She's like,
that.
She's a very good agent. Like she is. Yeah. She's an asset that he can use. And that's why he's like, I need you healthy. He needs her healthy, not because he cares about her, but because he can use her. And I think that is, I think that's really important. Like him coming here, because he sends Cassian his mission, and he says, Bix will be fine. And Cassian says, you don't know that. And that's just alarm bells for him. He's like, where are my weaknesses always?
Right.
Tay, don't worry, Cinta dumped him out the speeder last year. So that's
turned
fine.
It right over.
Yeah. But like, but is Bix a weakness that I need to worry about? So let me go scope it out. Oh, you got these drugs. And he's like, he's got personal experience, right?
That was so interesting.
Right?
Like
that they help with the dreams
and
then the dreams come back and they're even worse. So we know that he has done things. I mean, we already knew this, but like he has done things that have haunted him, and he has dabbled in various narcotics or whatever attempts to, and now he's just like, I just live in hell. That's just it for me.
Mine's
and like
a sunless space.
Yeah. People fail. That's our curse. Is something that we said last week. We got an interesting email from our listener, Emma. I will say, before I read her email, I will just say that, like, I think since Rogue One, I have been thinking about, and now we're sort of back further in the race, I've been thinking of this as like a relay race. A theme that came up a lot in season 1 that people like to notice because it connects to Rogue One is this idea of the climb, right? Yes. K2SO says that as he's dying to Cassian in Rogue One, and then Nemec says it in season 1 of Andor, and then we hear it on Narkina 5, etc. This idea of the climb, and the climb is almost like this race of you're handing off something to someone, and in Rogue One, it's these literal plans to Leia, who will then go help radicalize Luke and Han and stuff like that. But it's like from Cassian to Jyn, to Leia, to Luke, to Han, et cetera, this idea of like, a relay race. So what Emma wrote was, I've been thinking a lot about Luthen's proclamation. People fail, that's our curse. It comes from a dark and sunless mind at a very cynical moment, but I didn't take from it that Luthen is hopeless or that he doesn't believe in people fighting in his rebellion. Rather the opposite. I think that he's saying the rebellion is a team sport, a relay race in which the players become greater than the sum of their parts. Yes, we all fall short of our ideals. Humans fail, but a few small acts of bravery or decency is enough to move the cause forward. The hope is that someone else will be there to pick up the baton and run the next leg. This show is so careful to build heroes who aren't all that heroic and villains who are far more complex than pure evil. You can't pin all your hopes on some mythical savior, unless it's Luke, who always does the right thing. However, if everyone digs deep and finds a little bit of heroism, then you've really got something. So... it's funny because I was talking to someone last week about, because I can't stop talking about Andor, about taking the lessons of Andor and what does it mean in our current situation in terms of, like, let's say some people in this country are not enjoying how the country is being run right now, these here United States. But what are we doing about it?
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to work and doing our thing and thinking like, I'm ready to do something when someone tells me what we're supposed to do, but we haven't figured out what we're supposed to do or what our tipping point is into doing something. And I was like, well, that's all we need, a catalyst, a tipping point, and then we need a mythical boy with a magic sword. Oh no. So yeah, anyway, on the big strung out watching Good Morning Coruscant front, this is a wild thing that I have not confirmed, but people who know more about Star Wars blasters than I do have said that the blaster that Bix is cradling while drugged out is the same one Cassian uses to shoot Krennic in the back to save Jyn at the end of Rogue One. It's built around a specific gun, and so this person recognized it. And I'm just like, that's fun. This is a very Chekhovian gun. It's Bix's gun that he uses to save Jyn for a time. for like 5 more minutes. For a bit.
Love that. You know, who's again, we don't know why they're not together and Bix isn't there, but like the idea of carrying a part of Bix with him if she is no longer around, which will be pretty painful to confront if that is what happens. Yeah, I think like it's a really interesting email from Emma. I mean, obviously we agree that the reason the show is so rewarding to think about and discuss is because all of the characters are so complex. And this has been the thing about Luthen from the jump. You know, this obviously he makes it active text in his episode 10 speech, but we were having such an interesting time thinking about his actions and his pursuits even before he said all of it out loud. And like, I think that the relay race is a really interesting, it's a really interesting like idea to invoke because I think what is also true about Luthen, you mentioned Tay, we have clearly this, I mean, everything that he's doing here with Bix, like, okay, I want you to be healthy, but also I am here to see if you're a liability now. He will like just actually say that to Cassian in the scene we're going to discuss next, like, or 2 scenes from now. You know, he's like, you're going to have to make the call. Obviously in season 1, when he was hunting Cassian before he, you know, fully brought him in, it was like, are you a liability? We know what he does. So is it a relay race? Yes, definitely. But also, if you can't finish your leg of the relay race to get to the next person, Luthen is unwavering in being the one who will make that call. And he is often pointing out that other characters are not prepared to do that in the way that he is. So just like what a you know, incredible thing to consistently watch our characters confront as well.
In a sports metaphor space, right? Yeah. He would, if you had a minor injury, he's like, we're not going to deal with rehab. We're pulling you from the team and we're replacing you with some like a fresh runner. Yeah. Right? Like, yeah.
Or we're going to put you out there and ruin the rest of your career. Give me what you have while you have it. Like either.
Lonnie.
Yeah, exactly. God, worried about Lonnie. Lonnie was really mixing it up with a lot of dangerous people this episode.
I loved watching Lonnie work in these episodes.
It was really good. Yeah, really good.
Stuff.
I have to imagine he will be killed soon, but I don't know that. I have not watched ahead, but I am worried.
That's not like similar to Clea and like a couple other characters, like Lonnie and Clea and like Will and like all these characters who were secondary, tertiary background characters here for an episode or 2 are our main characters here in this season. And I love that.
Which is like, honestly shocking because we have 3 episodes for a fucking year.
Yeah.
And yet there's somehow
time for Lonnie.
Time for Lonnie. And like interactions with 6 different characters, which is incredible.
But I think it's also like that. It's like the MCU approach of like, we need a scientist. Who can we pull from somewhere to play that role? Like, we need someone to help Clay in this heist. Let's use Lonnie. Lonnie from season 1. He was great. What a ginger. Let's bring him back. It's great stuff.
Perfect. Cassian returns home and he does not think that the update that he receives is perfect. Unlike us, he didn't get to watch Lonnie, so he has some notes here. This is where we get this incredible kiss, and then also some talk about how they're gonna bring Varian Skye into the bedroom one night. Very pretty, your kind of guy. Bring him home some night. I mean, again, the show is just incredibly horny this season, and I'm loving it.
This is only your second favorite horny moment of the episode.
There's such a clear winner. Yeah. Everyone else is playing for second place.
Correct.
It's Syril and Dedra.
It definitely is.
Oh my God. Joe.
Yes.
She asks if the mission was dangerous. He's like, the only thing that scared me was Luthen. And she's like, hey, tell me about it. That guy stopped by. Real record scratch for Cassian here. He's enraged. Honestly, I thought this was great. Cassian had so many different things to do in these episodes. I loved all of it. But this was like such a specifically calibrated kind of anger toward another person, right? You waited till I left and then you did this thing behind my back and then I was with you on the Fondor and you didn't tell me. Yeah. I love specifically when he said, there were a couple great things because Bix has this moment where she's like, it happened. And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm not saying it didn't, right? Like, I know it's real.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. The thing I'm saying is like, what is that? He knows you need a rest, but then also he says, he has to know we're having this conversation. He doesn't do anything without a reason. And that's true. Mm-hmm. Like, in order for this dynamic between Cassian and Luthen to work, it can't just be that Luthen is always like assessing, studying, manipulating, seeking to deploy something about what he understands about the other people. Cassian has to understand Luthen too.
That, and also what actually my favorite win for Cassian inside these episodes. And I hope this, like, I know you were a little like, Cassian's just sitting with a bunch of losers for the first 3 episodes. Yeah, he gets a lot to do.
Yes, this was more my speed.
But him being so right.
With respect to your favorite characters, the Maya.
Thank you. Yep, they will live forever in my heart.
He's right like every time.
Him being right about Ghorman. Like him being so dead on right about Ghorman. And
they weren't ready like, that doesn't matter. Spy was playing them.
He was so right. And so he needs to be good at this. And we also see him multiple times inside of this episode teaching people. Mm-hmm. And so,
which he also did with the Maya Pay dipshits last week. That was so striking when even when they were holding him prisoner, he's like, put a tarp out to get the water, set a perimeter, etc. Like,
so when Enza's just like playing spy and he's like, listen, dumbass.
I love
this
that.
is not how we do this.
That
Tell your people to stop following me. It's causing distraction, all this sort of stuff. Like, it's really good because when we meet him in Rogue One, he is a leader. So how did Cassian, the self-interested thief, become a leader? And we're watching him do it.
And particularly because Luthen actually expresses that idea in their argument, right? Like, you're thinking like a thief. I'm thinking like a soldier. Think like a leader. Well, he is. He actually is behaving like a leader. Part of leadership is making sure other people are ready for what awaits. I do have one note, though, for Cassian Andor. I'm with Luthen. Going to the gallery is deranged.
Oh, well, especially since he just called out Enza for like her sloppiness and stuff like that. He's like, the Gore are going so fast. This is sloppy behavior. And then like, he's flying off the handle. This is
so reckless.
Yeah.
But of course, that's like, ultimately, it's human. Everyone's flawed.
I kind of wish Clay had been there. She would have like murdered him.
She would have. But let me ask you this. If Clay had been there, would we have gotten to ask the most important question that Andor has posed to date?
Which is?
Does Luthen sleep in the wig? The doorbell rings. He comes out. The wig is on. It's the middle of the night. Joanna, it is time for an impromptu Wig Watch TM with Joanna Robinson TM.
Here's the true fact.
When he's at the gallery, does he sleep in the wig?
If he's going to sleep in the wig, which he shouldn't do, but if he does, he should sleep in a hairnet as well. Something protective. Maybe a silk bonnet. I don't know. But like, he needs a protective layer between himself. I hope he's sleeping on fine Ghorman twill like the finest, slippiest of sheets, but also like he needs some protective layers on that wig. Yeah.
This was incredible stuff. This is where some of the lines we've already talked about today are uttered. This is the second time today you let me down, because this is, of course, after Cassian says to him, like, I don't think we should do the Ghorman thing. You had to know she would tell me. I thought it would be interesting if she didn't, but now you've both disappointed me. In addition to this just being like top tier Andor writing, incredible, and the performances, as usual, are sensational. Just fascinating from a Luthen character perspective, because he's like not ducking from it at all. He's just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm going to say it with conviction. Thought that was incredible. And then this is where he invokes again the cause. He kind of just like mocks Cassian to his face, kill me or take me in, calling back to the
really good.
season 1 finale.
Yeah.
You're in. Oh, but Ghorman looks too painful. Bix is too vulnerable. And Cassian says, I give you everything. To which Luthen, Mr. What have I sacrificed? Everything.
Everything.
I mean, the most famous scene in Andor history, right? Replies, this is everything? This is just like a delicious stitching together of the entire tapestry of the show for these characters and beyond. I thought this was great. And I really loved like Cassian saying with this just like, you know, lingering humanity.
Yeah.
We are not droids, Luthen. And Luthen replying, we are not who we were when we started.
I think, oh my God. I think we are not droids, Luthen, on the back of like Mon talking to Vel last week about, you know, joy inside of rebellion versus what Cinta said to Vel last season about like, hey, the cause is it. It's not us, it's the cause.
We take what's left.
Yeah, we take what's left. So I think that, and then her sort of reversal of that in her final moments with Vel, is an interesting question. Is an interesting question to ask. Like, what are you allowed to have inside of something this monumental?
Yeah, and like if your answer is nothing, then how do you keep finding the strength to fight? This is just like a fascinating thing that the show is exploring.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard this, Mallory, but you can't pour from an empty vessel.
It's true. It's true. My last note on this is that Cassian, who has shared a life with B, should speak more kindly of droids and their emotional depths. But, you know, so it wouldn't be me if I didn't say it.
Sure.
So, we're all thinking it.
Marva.
Oh, man. Luthen says, like, if Bix doesn't pull it together, you're going to have to decide at what point it becomes too large a problem. And then Cassian basically just volleys the challenge right back to him. He's like, that's going to be up to you. And if you want to keep me around, you have to fix this. And then he just states one of the themes that we've been discussing. It would just be easier if I was alone, huh? Like, they clock it. They see what Luthen believes and is trying to do.
Luthen's like, don't make me call Cinta. Don't make me call the Uber.
When Mon later was like, I haven't heard from Vel, and Luthen's like, do you need to? Like, why? Wild stuff. And so is your read here that Luthen responds to this interaction with Cassian by saying,
the Gorst
okay,
mission.
Yeah. The light is back on. Here you go. Gorst. And his pastries.
Here's how this is cronutted throughout the 3 episodes here.
It is lunchtime. It won't be lunchtime when it posts, but we should tell people.
I'm not hungry for a cronut. I don't like them, but I just think the lamination is too good of an excuse. So Luthen is asking for updates from Lonnie from the jump, right? Personally checking in on Bix, seeing what Gorst has done to her, knowing the impact of Gorst, not just from Bix, but from learning about this, thing that the Empire wants to do with Gorst. Lonnie handing the news to him that the Gorst program was being expanded. And then the beacon is lit, but we don't see the follow-up assignment that we get the payoff. And I just, the beacons are lit. Gondor calls for aid, but like, I saw some people saying like this came out of nowhere, and I'm like, no, I think they laid the breadcrumb trail for this, and here we are. And the question is, is this action now? I'm not. This is not this attempt to heal some trauma is not available to most people.
Right.
But like, is this a healing moment for Bix, or is this more to come? You know, like, I don't know that shooting Gorst roots out the disease that, you know, she's grappling with.
I agree. I think that this is a show where, and a story and just a nature of storytelling and like a exploration of human behavior and relationships and feelings where like it doesn't seem likely to me that in Andor this would just not surface for Bix again. I would be pretty surprised by that. And hopefully it feels healing to take action and to be, like you said earlier, engaged in active partnership with Cassian. But I don't think this would be the last time that Bix thought about Gorst and what she had been through. That just doesn't, that would not strike me as like true to the spirit of the show. I did think it was pretty sick when the sound cut out as it had before, and we're like, we know what that fucker's hearing. But like the other thing that we have to confront, of course, is that we hear in the ISB sequences, like you said, like he's too valuable for just the ISB, so every other department wants him. He's going to be a program. So like this torture tech is not gone.
Well, the question is,
it lives
like,
beyond him.
How many files did he leave behind? Has he trained anyone yet? You know, like, what's the deck look like?
There's at least, I mean, yeah, right. Is it uploaded to the cloud?
Yeah. Did he leave good instructions or like bad IKEA level instructions? Like, what are we doing with the machines here? But they blow up the machines. Like, what if all the recordings are there? I don't know. Our listener David did
using Google Drive. It's tough to say. I don't know.
Our listener David did point out that Bix is wearing a classic Daemon Targaryen murder cloak here, and we love that for her.
We do. We love a murder cloak here on the House of R. Speaking of cloaks, let's go to Ghorman. They
don't like cloaks. They like trench coats and berets.
Berets, yes. This is the key battleground in these 3 episodes for everything that is unfolding between the rebellion and the Empire. We have like the most time is spent on Ghorman and with people who are even elsewhere discussing Ghorman. This was really central and really, really, really great. And our first introduction to Ghorman comes through Syril, and like a lot of what we've already discussed, but a couple other little observations, just like the way that he is, once again, we talked about this last week. We got the great email about Imperial members of the Empire who are like looking at themselves in the mirror and that narcissism. So we have mirror tracker update of Syril, you know, looking at his own reflection, fixing his hair, and then of course clocking the spy behind him. Great stuff. I really loved, these were great episodes for just tradecraft and like, you know, really luxuriating in Andor as a spy story. And I loved the little detail of Syril just using a piece of thread to put on the bottom of his door to see if somebody breached it. Because it's just so like, it's just so simple and tactile in like such a high-tech world. I loved it.
That, and also just like the fact that it's a thread and we're on this planet that is known for its twill. And then we've got these spiders and these webs. There's this moment when Syril goes to the town hall meeting and like Enza and Sam are it's like he's like a fly caught in their web, but like they're actually caught in his web. It's all very cool and juicy on Ghorman. I just want to shout out, you know, we always talk about production design on Andor. I think this is the best shit they've ever done, is this central plaza in Ghorman. The fact that the design is this like Art Nouveau, you know, like interwar sort of European look. It's funny, when we got the establishing shot of Ghorman on the water, I thought, I was like, and then I heard the mandolin on the score. I was like, are we going to Italy? And then it was like, oh, we're in France. But
we're in space France,
But they have talked about how both the French resistance and the Italian resistance was like, I mean, obviously we're in France, but like that the Italian resistance, that they did base the look on like Turin and Milan and a lot of these other like beautiful, they just wanted like this beautiful classical European look, so that later when we hear like on Ghorman of all places, like that what is its like place in the galaxy? What does it represent? Not just as this like supply
right.
for Krennic, for the Death Star, but
Right,
also
but
just
like
sort
the
of
luxury.
ideologically, what does it mean for Ghorman to fall? If it,
Yeah.
if Krennic is able to carry out his plan and decimate the planet, which is what he's like
Right.
wanting to do,
Gotta
what
cut
does
those
that
reactor beams with some of those
what does
reactor
that
lenses with
mean?
something.
And we
Yeah.
get
Peace and prosperity, Joe.
something that Tony Gilroy said in an interview that I absolutely love is that he said that Palpatine's tunic is Ghorman twill.
Mhm.
That, this stuff is just everywhere in the
As
galaxy.
Edie says, if you can afford it, why wouldn't you buy it?
Why wouldn't you buy it? It's the best of the best.
Great stuff.
But
I
also,
really loved on the design front the hotel that we'll see with Cassian.
Yes.
Like I thought the green marble and like that was just like stunning. The opulence,
the round structure of the building, the BNS building, and like how it's all one set that they built. So like the lobby of the hotel and the lobby of the building, sort of like similar to the Red Keep on House of the Dragon, is just like a set you can walk through.
Yes.
And so it just like feels like, and we love a long walk.
We do.
Cassian will take a long Coruscant walk to, on his way to pick up his papers to go to Ghorman, and then Syril's taking a long walk through here, and we see pigeons and we see tables in the plaza where you can where you can play space chess. Like it's just like it's
nothing more Parisian than a little cafe table with some goodies on it. My goodness,
just like incredible. And the last thing I'll say, I won't want to come back to the Gore language. I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But the fact that they like created a language here, the detail inside of like the idea of this is an industry planet, the twill, the when they say things like a webbery, you know what I mean? They have a national anthem that they created. Like all of this stuff is just so distinctive, even more so than I think it's better than Aldani, I would say, in terms of like, I really understand what this place is.
Yeah, for sure.
On Ferrick's level, I think, in terms of like, here's the specificity of this culture that we are threatening with this looming brutalist structure that's casting shade over the plaza here. It's just incredible.
Over the monument. Yeah. To the fallen is all so good. I think I love all that. I think the other visual that popped into my mind when on the like symbolic front is when Cassian is meeting with Rylance later and they walk past, they have like in their Twillery, they have the little spider encased in the glass dome. And it's like
one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
It was gorgeous. And it's this like, almost like a trophy of their excellence, right? An embodiment of the beauty and majesty and achievement of this place. And also it's like, right, they're the ones who are trapped. Actually, like they're the ones who are encased in this Thunderdome. Like I thought that was really great, and like I really on the practical set front and walking through, like you sketched out beautifully earlier the way that this FaceTime that we hear between Syril and Edie plays on top of Syril, like taking us through the plaza. What is life like here? What is his path to work? Oh, he's going to have to scan his ID with these guards who he then is going to have to dupe later, all of it. But also just like the way that then when he walks back home, the transports are in the background and we're like, right, this is going to be the path for this mission later. Like all of it in a really, I mean, it's 3 long episodes, but that's a really short span of time to give us such a deep sense of place. When the front is plotting the mission with Vel and Cinta, we hear just literally like how many families live in this particular place, who might be home, who might come out, are the rooftops clear? It's an incredible level of specificity that then allows you to like fill in, you know, when like a CG, like they're filling a CGI stadium or something and they like actually design just, you know, a one row or group of people and then they like copy and paste them everywhere. Yeah. It's like a trick that our minds are able to do when we watch Andor. We have enough specific detail and enough fully pixelated rendered faces to be like, I know what this whole place is like. And that's just, that's incredible, really incredible. I also thought that the Syril office was like the real TVA. Coded in a way that I quite enjoyed on the production front. Great.
You bring up the dome around the spider. I think the spherical shapes that we see everywhere inside of this is really interesting. When we see Syril looking himself in the mirror, he's catching someone watching him, right? Across the way. His office, which is so cool. The way that there's like a catwalk
really cool.
to his office, and that's the desk where everyone sits below him.
Wild,
and then his office is curved with glass everywhere. So it's this like panopticon sort of situation. And the whole square, the whole plaza is a panopticon sort of, like the hotel's there, the office is here. We're all watching each other. The windows are shaped like eyes. Like it's just, you're constantly being surveillance inside of surveillance, plans and times inside of plans, inside of this space. So it is both like beautiful and then gives you chills. It just gives you this sort of like looming, unnamed surveillance feeling as you're wandering through it. Also, just like this, sorry, last thing. The smallest detail, as Syril's on his way to work, and this puttering speeder, like turquoise blue speeder goes by him, and it's like backfiring, sort of rattling along. Comparing that to like, I was thinking about the stupid shiny Vespas from Boba Fett. You know, I was just like, this a rattling, backfiring speeder is like what I want in this world.
I actually feel like there would be shiny Vespas on Ghorman, but yeah, they'd have some nice rides. But I hear you. I thought you were going to say on the tiny detail front the like hairless dog. Did you catch that guy?
The hairless
dog.
Little
hairless dog, Howlin'. He was great.
Would you like a fun fact about him? I looked. I found this out just for you. The art department created a collar for the dog and added the name Elvis to it in Dixian, one of the Ghorman written languages. So that dog is Elvis.
Sensational stuff. Yeah. I mean, he left an impression on me. He really did. That brief little howl we got. On that circular imagery front, it's also, this is like a very basic thing to say in Star Wars, but it does just make you think of the Death Star. And like, you know, we know what they're mining that calcite for, and it's hard not to think of like the way that I think of all the very striking Death Star imagery moments across Star Wars, and there are obviously myriad. One of the most memorable is the circular shape emerging like a giant moon in the sky in Rogue One. So like that was very, I thought, inescapable. This is just a little drumbeat of doom. Snowman. On the Syril Edie front, this like staged call because Syril knows he's being watched. Did you have a favorite? This was just, as is always the case with these two, first word to the last word, perfection. Did you have a favorite moment? I will throw out for you when Edie is running through what you outlined before, like he found a woman actually willing to make a life with you and you just walk away, a respectable career, a relationship, finally, all of it cast aside, throw away for what? A field office on Ghorman? Syril replying, I'm assuming you won't be visiting, was just one of the best things I've ever heard. It was just incredible.
I think the only thing I can possibly come up with to match it is, in charge of what? Counting spiders?
Very good as well. Very good as well.
I love her. Her
not as good as what she'll say later that she's going to name her spider Syril.
And he's like, great.
It's an interesting choice.
Under the hair lamp.
Yeah, great.
Was giving very, I don't know if you're a fan of Terry Gilliam's Brazil, but the mother character in that is like, famously, there's like this famous scene where she's getting plastic surgery. It's very demented Catherine Hellman. And I was just like, it's this grotesque sort of like beauty. I mean, anyway.
Wonderful stuff.
Edie, I love you.
She's a legend. Always delivers every time. She would like Syril to file one thing away, which is don't become too much of an individual.
That's the thing about Syril that I think is so interesting. We got an email about this, I think, last week that I didn't read out, but this idea of Syril Karn inside of the Imperial machine is so interesting when he is someone who will like tailor his collar a little higher, that like does want to stand out, that does want to be noticed by Partagas. So like he doesn't want to assimilate into the machine the way that like, you know, it's Hirt who's like, I'm not after glory. No. Dedra,
I'm here.
Think
I'm
about
not
it.
After glory. I'm after more Cali coolers. God damn it.
Think about it. But like Syril, and I love this idea of Syril Karn, who's like pleased as punch, obviously, to be sent on this mission.
He's like, having the time of his fucking life.
Will I ruin everything if I say this is the best day of my life? Like,
incredible. Iconic.
But sending Syril Karn, a lover of tailoring, to the Twill planet. And like watching
loves a custom
him,
pipe on a suit, that guy.
Watching him sort of lovingly place those spiders on the decorative shelves of his
Yeah.
he is enjoying Ghorman. Like
loves life here.
He loves being here.
So that actually gets to a question I wanted to ask you, because I think a large part of what will fuel this question is what you are identifying, which is like the truth inside of the lie is always helpful. And it actually is easy for Syril to like pretend like Ghorman is the place for him, because in many ways, maybe not politically, but in many ways it is. It's very clear right away what is actually happening in terms of the game that is afoot.
Yeah.
Was there any part of you watching this in any of the scenes that we see with Syril and the Ghorman front, where you allowed a little part of your brain and your heart and your soul to wonder,
can Syril be turned?
Could this guy jump ship?
Yes.
Because there were a number of moments where it's like, there's good acting and there's no in the game. And then there is like, I thought, you know,
he's
especially
learning
because
the language,
the motion, the gestures. When he said the thing he would take with him was the depth of feeling, I was like, but he means that. Yeah. And like,
as soon as he puts on a beret, I'm just sort of like, I think he's just quite susceptible to the allures of the gore of Ghorman.
Yeah. I had a real seesaw journey with this across these episodes, because in that Partagast scene that you're alluding to, where he's like, this is just the fucking best moment of my life. You know, the true believer comes out many a time throughout these episodes as well. But I don't know, like when Rylance was saying to him when they meet when they have the private meeting after the larger meeting, he's like, you know, do you understand why people would be upset about the shadow of an imperial complex over the monument for our dead? And the way that Syril said, like, yes. Just like, is there part of him that means it?
There's good in him. I can feel it.
You can fix him. You can fix Benjamin Poindexter. And you can fix Syril.
I don't think I think Syril is beyond my reach. But,
I think so too.
But Poindexter, I can fix him.
It's fun to delude ourselves every so often. But yeah, I think so too. Let's talk about the Ghorman front recruiting this guy.
Yeah.
We heard about the Ghorman front. They were one of the many groups, one of the many rebel factions that saw rattled off to Luthen in that memorable scene in season 1 that we talked about last week. Joe, would you like to, what would you like to spend time on here? Would you like to talk more a little about, since we hear a lot of the language here, about the French resistance influences of the language, or would you just like to spend the rest of the pod talking about Rylance listening back to the tape and saying, of Edie, the mother is terrified, which is maybe my favorite moment in the history of television.
Is this what will unify the rebellion? Everyone joining common cause against Edie?
Astonishing stuff.
Yeah, the Gore language, which is, you know, something that they created for the show. I was like looking up to see if it was our guy, David, who does all the languages on Game of Thrones. But it's not. It's a woman named Marina Tyndall created the language. And then they hired all French-speaking actors, and they taught them this language. And they got so proficient in it that they could improvise in this fake language that they created, which I think is
incredible.
So cool.
That's even wilder than growing all the rye. That's unbelievable.
I can't. Like every
how?
week, I'm like, how? And Marion Dupré, who is a French woman, also helped with this. And I think it's astounding. Because to my ear, I was like, for a second, I was like, is this French? And I was like,
same.
No.
Yeah.
I was like, it has all the phonetics of French, but I was like, I can understand some French. And I was like, I'm not picking up a single word, so this is not French. But in terms of like the French resistance as something to follow here, it's interesting. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about like the French Revolution or Les Miserables, like different revolutions, but they're very specifically going for the French resistance. And I think the way in which the French resistance in World War II is best reflected from my shallow tour that I've taken through a couple different documentaries is, you know, Germany occupies France, but lies to them and tells them that, oh no, you're still France though. You're still France. We're just here. Right. We've taken over Paris, but you can go to Vichy. There's a lot of hotels there set up. The Nazis love a hotel. Set up in the hotels in Vichy and like run your government from there, and we'll respect it. And
Yeah.
when they talk inside of the show about like this is a violation of the Imperial Charter, they're just like ignoring the Imperial Charter. Or when the senator from Ghorman is like, I can't chafe against the Emperor. I can't help you, Mon. I got to keep my head down.
Yes.
We just got to keep our head down.
Right. I'm telling my citizens that constantly. I can't violate that trust. Yeah.
This is the, the cooperation that you saw from the Vichy government, the French government with the occupying force of the Nazis. So then you had to have these homegrown French resistance movements operating in the shadows, so much spycraft. It started in the cities, so started in a place like this and then sort of spread out into the more rural areas. And I just think that I think this is just like a fascinating period in history. I've always been kind of interested in it. And it's a fascinating concept to insert inside of what does it mean to rebel? Well, let's look at this very specific test case and what went on there. But like down to like the conversation that Krennic has, my terrorist is your rebel sort of thing. Like that exact language. Yeah. They were called terrorists, like all this sort of stuff. I just think that it's this illusion of independence. Like we still have a Senate. We're in 3BBY and there's still a Senate. This illusion of independence is so key to this exact tipping point moment inside of a rebellion.
I thought the moment where Mon is like listening to the oath keeper recite the pledge at the Senate and then can't bring herself anymore to parrot the words was fascinating.
I don't have documentaries to recommend to people because I didn't write them down, so I'm so sorry. But I will say, obviously, as Chris pointed out to us in our group chat, the actor who's playing Rylance is an actor that was in Inglourious Bastards, a great film that deals with the French resistance. The Battle of Algiers is an incredible classic film that deals with the French resistance. There was a recent Ben Mendelsohn show on Apple Plus that I did watch called The New Look, where he played Christian Dior, and it is about how Christian Dior navigated the Nazi occupation and used the money that he got basically designing dresses for the Nazi wives to fund the resistance in one way or another. Maisie Williams is also in that, and John Malkovich. It's great. It's a great show that nobody watched because it's Apple, and sometimes those shows just don't seem to exist.
As you know.
So it's a fascinating time, and it's really exciting to watch them engage with it inside of our Star Wars show.
Yeah, this is like all that was. Thank you for taking us to Resistance Corner. Wonderful stuff as always.
Yeah.
And we get to see again in the lot of different layers because we are with the smaller group of the front, but also we go to this larger meeting. We see how other people in this community are expressing themselves and what they are pursuing, and that there is again not full alignment. Of course, but the front has ID'd Syril as like the perfect target. He is this conflicted inside man. Let's win him to our cause. And Sam invites him to the meeting with a wrapper around a candy inside of the spider, just like an incredible detail for how they're passing information. Syril later will put the floppy disk with the transport information on it right into that case, pretending like he's buying another spider for Edie. Just incredible stuff all around there. I loved that.
When you saw how they were spelling Sam, did you feel like you were back in Game of Thrones?
Of course. Yeah.
There's an extra M there for no reason, guys.
Absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason, but I loved it. Syril has to go back to the office and kind of pull a little like that man is playing Galaga on the guards because they're just watching pod racing. And it's like, well, you could go ahead for me. No, okay, yeah, go ahead. Takes the data pad, sneaks into a safe room. I still thought this was risky, but obviously he knows the office is bugged. He's assuming the device is safe. Communicates to Dedra back on Coruscant. So we're like, holy shit, we're seeing how they're operating in cahoots with each other. Thrilling stuff. He can't wait. He's like, I'm ready to talk to Party. She's like, we're going to need a little more. Slow down. Again, the rushing, right? When is it time to move? When is it not? And so he attends the meeting. And we get to hear a number.
When he says they're following me, who else could be following me? And she pauses.
Yeah.
Do you think that means that she says later, I had my people follow you
on Coruscant.
Like when he's back on Coruscant. But do you think she has people following him on On Ghorman?
Probably. Keeping eyes
old
everywhere
Yeah.
all the time, I have to assume. I do wonder how Syril, knowing that he's being listened to and watched all the time, has impacted his private time in his apartment. It occurred to me. Something I thought about.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling the evenings?
Okay.
something to noodle on later. He attends the meeting, Joe, and before he meets Rylance, we get to hear, as Syril is entering the crowd, a number of different people speak. We hear one gentleman talk about how for the first time ever, his clients, they are just considering not opening the hives, all of the different barriers that are making this impossible. We get to hear from a woman who basically says, like, they promised that they would not do this thing in this place, the monument to the fallen, the Tarkin massacre, which we will talk about more later. And then your guy, Lizine.
Citoyen. Lizine.
They'll make a prison of Palmo before they're done, mark my words. Now, this is Andor, and so it is impossible not to think of Narkina 5 and what we watched Cassian go through at the prison when somebody says something like that.
What I also love about him, because obviously he will be in the scuffle with Sam at the end of the episode. He's complaining about the convoys and the horns blowing. He's just trying to sleep at night. So it's like,
it's like too many noises and too much dust.
Yeah, this is seeded into why he will be sort of like rabble rousing in the street at the end of 6. Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. We have a meeting. Mm-hmm. Sam, Enza. It's time to introduce Syril to Rylance, Enza's father. And I loved the beginning of this exchange when Rylance says that he spotted Syril out in the crowd, and Syril says, I stand out that much? And Rylance said, no, that's what's interesting. And again, that idea that, like, could this be a place where he belonged is just, like, fascinating as an opening note. We're going to talk more about the Tarkin massacre when we get to the conversation between Cassian and the hotel bellhop, mm-hmm. But it is mentioned here. Rylance tells Syril 16 years ago, 500 killed. You can imagine how upset this would make people if they were putting in an Imperial military facility over the monument to the fallen. And then he just shares his worries more broadly. This is what we think is going on with this complex. We want peace and prosperity. Are you writing a report? Are you a spy? If you are, maybe make that the headline. We want peace and prosperity. And they are also moved when he returns that customary farewell, both the language and the gesture, because of course it signals to them that he is interested in being one of them. Mm-hmm. It's time to debug an office. Joanna, who's here?
It's Maester Orwell. So excited.
Wonderful stuff.
We got this great email from Reagan, who's a consistent great emailer, who says, in the realm, each house can only support one maester at a time, right? Now that Grand Maester Orwell and Maester Hand of the Queen Qyburn are both Imperials serving House Palpatine, sigil black cog on a white field, words, unlimited power. I think old Sheev is playing a dangerous game. By the old gods and the new, he better get right or else he may be headed for tragedy soon. But then again, even if he is killed by Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, well, what is dead may never die, but rises again.
Truly.
Somehow.
Somehow. Palpatine returned.
Yeah, Maester Orwell's here. Great.
I feel like Palpatine would just have the soundbite ready of Pycelle saying, not even a maester. For Qyburn, to borrow the bingeism.
This is a new fun tradition for me of taking a photo of a screener and sending you and saying, hey, Orwell's here. Because I did it with Slow Horses. And then I did it with Andor. I'm like, where isn't he going to show?
It's not even our only Fun Thrones cameo of these episodes. I mean, Miri Masner is here. Astonishing stuff.
I love her voice. Always.
Same. Me too. Great stuff. Syril earns even more sympathy with the front because of this debugging of the office, which was, of course, we can deduce the intention.
He's really good at theater.
He's fucking great at it.
Yeah.
Theater kid, you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
When he does the thing where he's like, apparently we're bugging our own offices and like kicks a phone off a desk. I was just like, This is a great touch, Syril.
I love the way, and he's like, I've meant to have condoned it or put it in myself, or it was a ruse for the Hydra. It's just, really incredible. And the fact that kind of in parallel with this, they have found the sealed, difficult to discover and unlock Morlana 1 files and learned, like, again, they're reinforcing their hypothesis. It's confirmation bias at this point, right? He's our guy. Dishonorably discharged, scandal on Ferrix, disgraced. Surely
Loves
he's
the high
got it
collar.
out for the ISB. Like really appreciates some fine fabric
Is
and
a little
tailoring.
kinky. Yeah, he's our guy.
So put a pin in that. That's something Syril has said before. Put a pin in that. He does in fact get them after saying, like, yeah, they do what they want. It's the ISB. He gets them what they need. This will be part of what he and Dedra talk about with Partagast. Like, you got to keep the information coming and it's got to be accurate, right? Again, they're not trying to stop this. They're trying to ensure that it happens.
Yeah, Dedra's like, they need to get a taste of what it's like to win.
Yes, which was so disturbing. We're going to take a brief Syril pause to bring Varian Skye into the Ghorman tea rooms and hotels. What did you make just of, in terms of the logistics of this assignment for Cassian, the fact that Luthen is just outright like, I need you there. I need you to assess Cara Rylance. I can't go. Too visible. I'm not sure about the group. Because at this point, we have seen the scene between Luthen and Lonnie. So we know that Luthen is like genuinely stumped by what Lonnie has told him about Dedra running Ghorman. He's like, what is the end game on Ghorman? What is going on with Ghorman? So he's like trying to get to the bottom of this. But he's not, first of all, he's not telling Cassian any of that.
Well, Lonnie's saying like 3 people know this at all. Lonnie just like being the perfect asset here. The way that he like gets this this top key
really made those post-meeting lunches useful.
Work. You owe me a favor? Give me lunch and also give me this key information that I will then use to fuck something up, sure.
And like the first time in 3 months that he's got anything for him. And if it's this massive thing. But like Luthen's afraid to go because he's right to be afraid that it would be too visible. He could be spotted. They could figure out who Axis is because of this. But like they're looking for Andor too. And in fact, when Dedra is talking to Hear later about the Axis desk, she talks about Andor.
She says
like,
Andor must be,
him. Yeah. So what in terms of just how we're talking more broadly about like Luthen and how he thinks about his people, did this give you a like, again, everyone is disposable to Luthen kind of feeling or not really? Is it more like a vote of confidence in Cassian that he can execute the mission without being caught?
I don't think he thinks of Cassian as disposable. Like he really cherishes Cassian as an asset. What I will say is,
like, there are people to send there who Dedra isn't looking for. And he knows Dedra's running Ghorman.
Does he know Dedra's looking for Cassian? I think what's interesting about Dedra saying Andor is like I'm almost wondering if like if that's a favor for Syril. You know what I mean? Like Cyril's the one who's obsessed with Andor. She's the one who's obsessed with Luthen. You know what I mean? So for her to be like, Andor must be found. I was like, what do you mean Andor must be found? Luthen must be found.
But he was part of the ISB pursuit also.
Yeah, but like just a smaller fish.
Sure.
I don't know.
Interesting stuff. The fact that these like Varian, Skye, and Syril scenes are intercut, we get the kind of like not only the mutual spycraft, but the just logistically handy Syril
convenient.
And Cassian are not on Ghorman at the same time, planet swap. So that was handy, certainly. Some fun little insights into how Luthen's people are communicating when Cassian is booking passage to Ghorman. We get the like where the episode gets its names, right? I have friends everywhere. We'll hear that later between Dylan and
nice.
Vel. So that was kind of fun. Like I'm curious by nature. I loved all that. And then he shows up and he arrives at the hotel and we get to really see how Cassian like works an
asset.
An asset for information. Like that one glimpse of his eyes when he's standing at the window waiting. To see if he will come back over and offer more.
Into his web.
Yeah, into the web. And this is like, so this is a really interesting, we talk here about the Tarkin massacre and the history on Ghorman of the Tarkin massacre. This is what we alluded to at the top of the pod, but we're going to talk very briefly here about what we learn here and also then how it connects to other knowledge we have across the canon. So if you don't want to hear this, you can hit fast forward like 3 times. But Joe, what did we learn here?
Okay, so The Tarkin massacre, which we had already heard mentioned by Rylance, is something that occurred 15, 16 years ago. There is a very key thing that happens on Ghorman that has not happened yet. And anyone who has gone elsewhere in the Star Wars canon, specifically, let's say Rebels, knows that this key moment has to happen for a number of other things to go into place. And we know that Tony Gilroy has said Ghorman was like something we knew we wanted to and had to grapple with. So like Ghorman is important. Something is yet to come. The Tarkin massacre, which was this instance from Legends, decanonized from Legends.
Right. And now made official. Yeah.
The Ghorman massacre instituted by Tarkin is he landed his ship on a bunch of people. That is so just dropped his ship on a bunch of people. And so what Tony Gilroy has done is said, hey, they kind of rewrote an incident on Ghorman to be something else in canon, and they decanonized this thing that Tarkin did. But he's like, what if we make it both true? What if we say this thing happened here 15, 16 years ago, and then something else might happen here?
Yes.
This moment where Tarkin dropped his ship on all these people is what earned him his admiralty, according to Legends. Like, that is sick behavior. But yeah, we're reconciling Legends and canon inside of the story.
Part of an ongoing quest.
Elegantly.
Yes, very much so.
Via this, like, there's the beautiful monument in the middle of the plaza, but also told by Rylance, yes, but told by this bellhop as this crow-nutted story of a personal loss of a boy talking about his father.
Yeah.
And you and I both wrote in our notes that Cassian is someone who lost his father in the town square, Rick's
to
Road, to the Empire, has to be thinking about that. But also I was wondering, later, Wilmon is asked multiple times who taught him how to use the machinery, and he could be protecting something inside of the rebellion.
Oh, I definitely think it was his father.
It's his father.
Yeah,
and so he's like, he refuses to talk about his father.
Yeah.
Who we lost at the, in season 1 of Andor. And so this just idea of like, boys and their fathers that they lost and like how that radicalized them and stuff like that. So like, I hope Welcome to the Resistance bellhop. I don't know. But
I know.
Like,
I know. I love that moment where he was like, my wife thinks it's insane that we don't leave. And like, I haven't gone very far, have I? And it's like, well, you still have a chance, but also you don't have to go far to fight for to challenge the people who did that to you. You can do it right here.
And he just refuses to leave his home.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that.
Yeah. Really incredible scene. The tea shop sequence happens next, which we sort of already discussed, when Enza comes in and she's just like, I'm here.
Feeling herself.
The peacocking. And Cassian's
I'm
like,
spying.
pause.
And he's like, girl.
Yeah. I thought this was so good. I am who you want me to be, but that's just you getting lucky. People die rushing, which is true and will be true again, but also like it is an urgent moment and sometimes you need to move quickly. But I thought that was just great. And I loved how when he meets Rylance at the Tuileries the next day, Rylance is basically like, I heard about what happened. We have a lot to learn. And you have this moment of thinking that he is just going to be like studying at Cassian's knee. And there is gratitude for what he imparted there. But that goes, it turns so quickly into Rylance being like, you're not the revolutionary I thought you were, which is really incredible.
I thought it was so fascinating inside of this scene, which was so good, where we have Enza's there and Sam's there and et cetera, is and Cassian, both in the cafe scene and in this scene, is slipping in and out of his personas, which is really fun.
Yeah.
But when Rylance says 19 generations,
one of the youngest.
And we're one of the youngest in Harlow, like that is just an incredible line to give us a sense of the history of the place.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the depth of the thing that is in peril here. My God.
When Sam asks, I think it's Sam, right? Sam asks like if Cassian has ever done something like that. And he's like, stolen something? Aldhani, sure. You wrote in the notes Aldhani, but I'm just like, Cassian is a thief. Like he's a thief.
Yeah. But like specifically the like
a convoy, sure,
stopping
but like,
an imperial convoy and take something of value from them.
But it's just sort of like stolen something. Yeah, I've stolen a few things in my life.
Quite a few things. Yeah. Quite a few things. Let me run through the list of all the people I owed credits to back in the day and all the trouble I was in. Yeah. Cassian like needs to see more and learn more before he is prepared to offer an assessment. They take him out at night. They show him the path. They show him the tunnels. Like, this is how we're going to do this. And when he meets with Rylance, he says, I have more questions. I have more questions than I have recommendations. And like, I don't think you should do this. And I love specifically the thing that he said, bringing that history as a thief to it. It's not the stealing that's hard, right? It's the getting away. And he says, but you won't be doing that. You'll be living at the scene of the crime. Worse than that, you're planning to advertise what you've done. And I did appreciate like really casting a light on the boldness of that intention, but also the danger of it then, right? To do this in your home, a place you can't leave, to do it in a way that demands attention and notice. What are you inviting when you do it? And of course, he's also providing the feedback about the risk of, and he's right, using an Imperial spy, right? Like, this is what they do.
Yeah, he's right. I love when he says, you'll be here, you're going to do the crime, then you're going to stay at the scene of the crime. I was wondering if he was thinking about Marva and this idea that, like, you know, for as far as we know, Marva died of natural causes. You know what I mean? Like, she was she was old, she was ailing and stuff like that. But like Marva being like, I'm gonna fight here.
Yeah.
Cassian's like, let's go.
Right.
And she's like, I'm gonna fight here. And like when he says the getting away, like logistically, there's like a surface read of that, but there's also just sort of like he like Ferrix, like, did he get away? Have they gotten away from Ferrix? They haven't. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's still there in some senses.
Yeah. Yeah. What does it mean to make your home a battleground?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Not much of a revolutionary, are you? I mean, it stings. It's tough to hear. But also, like, the fact that the reason somebody is saying that to him is because Cassian values life. Like, he wants them to live. He wants them to be okay. And he thinks what they're doing is not sane and not sensible, which of course then connects to Saw's line about how revolution isn't for the sane. So all of these threads are entwined, much like the web that our little spider is weaving. And it's time for both sides to ready for this transport theft.
And it's time for our listeners to ready for the most important scene in all of Star Wars history. And that is when Syril Karn comes home.
Yeah.
We get a little demure cheek kiss, but I will say
a full head to toe, first of all. Like,
yes.
Checking her out.
And she checks him out.
Yeah.
She looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Like black silk. She looks great. Incredible trouser
Wonderful
situation.
Fit. Yeah.
Her jaw like clenches when he gives her the little cheek kiss. They have an hour.
1 hour.
Just 1 hour.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Turn out the lights. I love his read of "Can't believe you had me followed." It's like flirty.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, he's like basically doing an eyebrow wiggle as he says
Turn out
he's
the
like,
lights.
He's so horned up that she had him followed. Sometimes we like to save it all for the pod. This is something we have already discussed with each other at length. And we were both like, okay, the lights go out. We were both waiting for some sound effects. I was waiting for like some slurping or something, and I feel deprived that we didn't get it.
I forgot that you said that. What I did remember you saying is like, or the sound of her, the
that's right,
heel of her high heel shoe,
grinding
into his thigh.
He's into it. You can just tell.
Our listener, Sean, and I hope it's Sean Fennessy, but it's not, but I wish it were, says, do you think Syril is the freak? Dedra is the freak? Or that they both match each other's freak?
I think they match each other's freak.
And we clocked this in season 1. I have to say. We were in Karn corner from the start. But when she interrogated him the first time, and like she got off on interrogating him and he got off on being interrogated by her.
Yeah. And then when he like showed up at the office, remember that?
Yeah. And he's like, thanks for the promotion. I know you want to fuck me. Anyway.
I am expecting some really good fanfic off of this moment.
Oh my God. I'm going to look it up right now. Hold on.
Please do. Send me some links.
Keep talking. I'm just going to see if this exists. Go ahead.
Send me some links. Fresh off fucking Dedra, Syril goes to visit his mom, who among us. And this is where he gives
We should note really quickly.
Yeah.
We don't like fascists or space Nazis.
It is important that we say that every time we talk about Dedra and Syril. Thank you for remembering to do it this
want to
spot.
make sure that we say that.
I thought you were going to say we should note that when Syril asked Dedra if he thought they were really watching his mom's place, she's like, no, but it's not worth it for something that small. I just love that. Like, visiting mom? Come on, not worth it.
I just need you to know that the first... Oh, okay.
Is there a
I just searched Syril
robust
Karn.
library?
I searched Syril Karn, and the first thing that came up is a fanfic titled "My Dad, the Emperor," and it's all about how Sheev Palpatine is Cyril's. So it's an Edie Karn Sheev Palpatine fanfic. Not what I'm looking for. These are not the droids I'm looking for.
Who's Uncle Harlow in that scenario then?
Here we go. Syril Karn and Dedra Muro. That's what I'm looking for.
What's the count? How many stories do we have waiting for us here?
106.
Okay. It's not enough, but it's better than 0.
One is called Turn Out the Lights.
Yes! The internet! Maybe it wasn't a mistake. There we go.
One is called Lights Out. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we both have to force ourselves to still go see Thunderbolts tonight, but let's also carve out time for some reading.
What is called Who Holds Your Leash? Oh my God.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Okay. Text me this.
I will.
Oh God. The entire sequence with the gifting of the spider and saying she's going to name it Syril, and Syril saying, interesting choice. They just have no notes. It's wonderful as always. But it is time to head to the Partagast meeting. And Dedra is she knows how to interact with a person like this in a setting like this. And she says, skeptically confident, right? Measured. Cyril's like, I'm ready to take this further. And I want my accomplishments to be known. I'm sure this is happening. They're planning already. They're experienced but very eager, he says, to which Partagast replies how often those attributes align. Tough stuff from my guy, Syril Karn.
The eyebrow incredible. That he cocks at Dedra at that is just
wonderful.
Very
absolutely wonderful. But Cyril's undeterred. He says the plan to bait Ghorman could begin here. Now, this is just an important little cementing of the question of how much Syril knows and doesn't. Obviously, he, as he states here, and as is clear from his behavior, he knows that they're sparking rebel activity deliberately. But as we will hear later in a private conversation between Partagast and Dedra, he can't know all of it and he doesn't know all of it. So presumably what that refers to is the Calcite, what they are seeking to get from the planet and why they're there specifically, what the larger
trying to
Stardust aspect is.
Trying to expose outside help in the rebellion inside of Ghorman. So he's trying to bait and capture let's say a Cassian Andor, a Luthen, that's what he wanted to do. And Dedra and Partagast are nope, we're gonna destroy an entire planet. That's our plan.
Yeah. We've got some...
And he's but the twill.
Some other agenda items we're working on in tandem. We're multitaskers. This is what is required for success in the Empire.
Will no one think of the piping?
Oh, man. Cyril's always thinking of the piping. Truly. Always.
Is that what your fanfic is going to be called?
Yeah. Yes.
Cyril's always thinking of the piping.
Probably.
Great.
Yeah, probably. What did you read in when he said, if I say this is the greatest day of my life, does it spoil everything? Dedra's, it's good to see you happy reply.
Genuine. It felt genuine to me. And
I agree.
So, here's the thing. Is going back to the Edie dinner.
Yeah.
From last week, do we believe that Dedra was actually defending Syril inside that scene? I do, but also she's the one who in that scene arranged a weekly Zoom call that they then used to bait the rebels. And so how long was Dedra planning? I'm going to send my boyfriend to Ghorman to, inside of a dangerous place to bait, rebel activity. And we're going to use his calls with his mom that they're going to be eavesdropping on and all this sort of stuff like that. I do believe she cares about him.
Same.
But I also believe she's always on a scheme.
He's a tool. Yeah. He's a tool in her toolbox. And so to then that point into what Partagast reminds her of, and she says, I remind myself constantly, sir. are you anticipating that there will be a moment where that tension becomes so keen for Dedra that she has to decide,
right?
Well, which matters more to me,
Who's
right?
the us?
Where they have their version of exactly like the big Cassian, who do I care about the us more than the larger us?
Right.
If she has to sacrifice Syril to preserve some sort of plot or intention, like, will the affection that we agree is genuine ever matter more than the mission? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Speaking of the mission, it's time to send in Vel and Cinta because Luthen picks up Cassian. I also was like, Luthen is going to Port Steergard in the Fondor to pick up Cassian. He's like, everyone's acting crazy.
He's like, it's too dangerous for me to go there, but also I'm going to go pick you up.
It's just wild. It did really take me back to see them on the Fondor together, though. It ports us to a lot of great season 1 moments. Cassian shares this assessment. Don't get involved. Luthen says, I've already heard from the front. They've chimed in. They're very prompt, the Ghormans. What they are is impatient. They started too late. Now they're rushing. There's that idea again. And Cassian's like, no one's going to care about this. Like, everybody knows about this. The Empire's going to care. And Luthen's like, yeah, exactly. Like, a Ghorman in play is a triumph. He calls it a triumph. And this is where they have that exchange about thinking like a leader. Mm-hmm. And the parallel we've already cited between how Luthen is thinking and behaving and how Dedra is thinking and behaving, it of course connects back to how Luthen talked about Aldhani, but also just what is happening for both of them with Ghorman. And if it goes up in flames, Cassian asks, it will burn very brightly.
That will light,
I burn my decency for someone else's future. I'm damned for what I do. These are things that we have heard this character say. And
I'll burn Ghorman if it means,
proof.
We can be free. Yeah.
Luthen and Clay have one of their delightful, pretending to talk about an artifact conversations. He's like, this isn't the one. Send in the other. So Vel and Cinta, they're here, and they meet at the tea shop. We know from last arc they haven't been in touch. Cinta's here. Her hair is shorter.
The way
her energy
they're
is
framed
muted
in that window, like on two sides, it's sort of like a yin-yang sort of design in the window.
And I love too, because like the tea shop on Ferrix, part of
Cinta was working
Cinta's
in
cover, and the site of the. No, we take what's left. Like, actually, this is not going to be the thing I prioritize. Yeah. Real heartbreak for Vel. This is where we learn, Joe, that Cinta had an accident. Mm-hmm. It led to some reflection. Mm-hmm. I would like you to luxuriate in the experience of reading a few of the many emails that the Bad Baby sent about what this accident might be.
Rachel said, now forever my headcanon, Tay was dumped like a bag of trash out of the convertible speeder in a convenient canyon. Thank you. Thank you. Bridget said, my money on Cinta's injury is that she forgot to buckle her seatbelt when she flipped the hover car upside down to kill Tay Kolma. And Haley wrote, my House of Our Addled Brain explained this mysterious injury with when she was killing Tay Kolma by flipping the flying car upside down, her seatbelt malfunctioned and she also fell out of the car. Like, literally, it is now the only thing I can imagine would have caused her injury. And I blame y'all for that.
What's it like to really feel your impact on the world?
I feel like I have purpose.
It's really, so canonically, really rare to get to see the difference that you've made.
Canonically,
such a clear way.
Canonically, Cinta dumped Tay upside down on the speeder, and then fell out. And then fell herself.
And now she has to wear one glove.
I'm sorry, bad shit's about the Cinta, which is not funny, but this is
terrible.
Okay.
We enjoy our levity where we can.
We laugh through the pain. Okay.
Vel and Cinta, before they have a private moment, they meet with the front. They're like, we're here to assess. If we don't like it, we're going to bounce. I thought this was fascinating because Sam, very chatty, a lot of bravado, and they shut him down. Don't what? Don't talk. Don't think. Do as you're told. If you can't manage that, you don't belong here. And so it's very interesting to me because, again, to be clear, like, they are right. He will ignore what they said. He will bring the blaster. Yeah. It will lead to Cinta's death. They are, as Cassian rightly said, not ready. Like, all of that is true. And the fact that these people are so inexperienced and have never done something like this is part of why they are issuing this counsel. All of that I acknowledge. But the Star Wars watching part of my brain was like, I don't know. Usually when we hear good soldiers follow orders, it's from the Empire. Like, that's the whole Crosshair plot in Bad Batch across multiple seasons, like interrogating that idea. So I just thought this was really interesting, especially because like Cassian is challenging his orders.
I think also for a character like Sam,
yeah,
who brings the blaster anyway, right? There's this idea inside, again, factions inside of factions. There's this interesting like divide inside of this little resistance group that feels generational, right? That you have Rylance, who says shit like, many of us believe the Emperor has no idea what's happening on his behalf.
Shadow government.
Okay. It's not Palpy's fault. Whereas like the rest of the group are these like young kids, which is like often what you find, you know, if you look at something like Say Nothing, which is about the troubles in Ireland and stuff like that. This idea of like rebellion, resistance, revolution is like this sexy movement inside of a youth movement. Right. And that's very French resistance, of course.
Yeah.
Won't you?
That's a great call. I liked too that Vel noted that they have to move quickly because intelligence gets stale, which like provides among the many reasons that they have to be operating against the clock, including the confirmation of a question you asked last week, which is like, is the next arc going to just be like a few days in a row as well? And it seems maybe that, I don't know, maybe it will be how the next couple are too.
So do you feel like this is 3 days? Is this 3 days, do you think?
I think it's just a few days. Yeah. Right?
Just like a week.
Yeah. Like Luthen's like, you were there for 2 days. And then Vel gets in and is like, we're doing it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
A few days. Not a swarm of days, not a horde of days. This continues to be one of my favorite. Yeah, not a throng, not even a throng of days. And I was thinking just of like the little detail, like, you know, from the first arc of Cassian's like, this wasn't the ship I was trained to fly. Like, how quickly does the intel move? And so how quickly do they feel like they have to keep pace with the information that they have? And is that actually a good reason to move so speedily and like not let caution lead you to hit the pause button? Like, it's not like there's a clear right or wrong answer. I thought the other thing was like, the Aldhani arc is the second arc of season 1. So this Ghorman arc is in the same place as Aldhani. Yeah. And so, of course, for many reasons, like the comparison is invited. I thought that this was one of the most interesting contrasts that helps us in that broader sense to the Cronut layering really feel the distinction of just a couple years where we are in the rebellion and where we are in the brink of the war really unfurling in full. Like, they were on Aldhani preparing for that for months. They come in, they make an assessment, and they go the next day. That is just a radical distinction in pursuit and circumstance from where they were in Aldhani.
And so as rebellion heats up, accelerates, we talked last week about this idea of Luthen as an accelerant, something that you pour on something to make it go faster and faster and faster, catch fire.
And then we're talking about Saw as fuel.
Yeah.
Like, what could go wrong?
Ready?
Huff and gas.
Okay. So
righto, my love.
So I think that like, I think as the pace picks up, then it makes sense for someone like Cinta, who not only had this injury, had this really tough year, all, you know, since we last saw her, et cetera, but also like being a revolutionary right now, to your point, is different from her working in a tea shop on Ferrix for like, I don't know, a couple months, however long she was there. She was embedded there for a long time, a month, let's say. You know, so yeah, it's a different, so like the pace is different. So then what you, the peace and joy and comfort that you can find in the spaces that you can find it become more important, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. Speaking of Cinta and Vel reconnect before the mission. Cinta apologizes for hurting Vel. She says, I don't know who I am sometimes. I was really struck by this. She says, you make yourself change. I've never done that. Because when they were not totally aligned in season 1 on what was more important, the relationship or the cause, one of the things that Cinta kind of like hurled back at Vel was, you know, go be the rich girl, right? This idea that she could move between identities, that she could be a chameleon and change her skin, because Cinta was like, I'm always this. This is all there is for me. And here for Cinta to recognize that as like a sacrifice
and an advantage
that Vel made, and maybe an advantage that she has to be able to like calibrate who she is based on the needs of the moment. I just thought that was really fascinating in terms of the history between them and what was on their minds here.
Can I just tell you,
please,
as a lover of cinema, television, storytelling, as soon as this happened, I was like, one of them is dying before the episode's over. And we'll talk about the inside of like a trope, what that means, but also just sort of like, I don't know. It was just one of those scenes. A lot of this, as we mentioned, the cronutty layers of this show, of Beau Wilmon's writing, exquisite speeches. You're going to talk about Huffing Rhino eventually with Saw, etc. All of that is incredible. This feels actually just kind of cliche and inelegant to me.
Tell me why.
Because if we want, do we want to talk about the trope aspect?
Yeah.
Okay, so then Cinta dies because Sam is a dumbass, and Vel eulogizes her. We'll get to that beautiful eulogy in a second, but I would say the clear vast majority of emails we got this week was something that was already on my mind. As soon as I watched this on a screener, I texted a TV writer friend of ours who had already watched it as well. And I was like, they just ran headlong into this trope for no reason. They didn't, it did not have to go down this way. So let me explain the trope really quickly, which is called bury your gaze, which is GAYS, which is a pattern, a troubling pattern we've seen again and again in television and film, wherein a queer couple who have gone through a lot of torment romantically, sexually, whatever, reconcile, and almost immediately after, one of them is killed. Usually this is two queer women, more than anything else. It happened on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, happens on the 100, happens like all over the place. And has happened so often that I'm just like, is no one talking to each other about it? Or no TV writers talking to each other about this? So to run headlong into this is disappointing to me, because I don't mind it, which is not to say gay characters can't die. Of course they can. Which is not to say in a show where we're about to, I'm sure, watch a bunch of characters that we care about die. This is what Tony Gilroy said in an interview on TV Line. He was like, hey man, people die. It's war. Yes, absolutely. To not have Cinta for most of the season and to have their reconciliation come so close. Like if they reconcile at the beginning of the season and we spent time with them, or we spent just a bit more time with Cinta, so like her story was something more than just like told in a scene and then she dies like in the next scene. It's just disappointingly, among being like really disappointing for people who are hungry, thirsty for queer representation inside of their Star Wars.
And very invested in this relationship as a result of that.
That is terrible and disappointing. And then for someone who just doesn't like cliches, it's terrible and disappointing. I'm just sort of like, they could have, it was so easy for them to not do it textbook, bury your gaze cliche, and so it has ramifications on a couple different levels. And so this is just something that like I bumped up against, and you and Chris and I were talking about this idea of like, are we missing anything in boiling down a 5-season plan to two seasons of television to do these year gaps? And like, perhaps in something like this, perhaps if we had more time to luxuriate in either 4 BBY or 3 BBY with Cinta and Vel, then we wouldn't have these sort of smacked up next to each other, and it wouldn't feel so plain, I think.
And I think their relationship was such a highlight of season 1. And I think there was real like longing to be back with them and to be back inside of their relationship, and not only what they mean to each other, but how they navigate the way that their relationship and their role in the cause are things that they can hold in tandem. And like, even here they talk about that, right? Like we have to talk to Luthen about that. But I think that, there are, we've lost a number of characters in Andor dating back to season 1 and already this season. That's certainly true. But I agree that to have like a one moment with Cinta in the first arc. Obviously, Cinta is discussed, in absentia elsewhere, but we hear about Cinta basically in one conversation. We see Cinta once. That's not a lot of time. It just isn't. We were just talking earlier in the pod. Well, that probably wasn't just. That was probably an hour and a half ago. But we were talking elsewhere in the pod today about actually how one of the real achievements of this season is the miracle of being able to somehow make it feel like a character like Clea is basically like one of the main characters. Now, if you actually totaled up the runtime, that probably wouldn't be true. But it's like, boy, we've gotten a lot of time with someone like Clea who was more in the background. We've gotten a lot of time with somebody like Lonnie who was more in the background. And so to not have had that with Cinta and Vel, and then to lose them, and I think like, the idea. I think that we'll talk about what Vel says to Sam, which I think is very, very intense and harrowing as a bit of writing and scene work and performance. But it's at the end of the day, it's also like on the one hand, there's beauty and power in saying that you carry these people with you. But there's also like, I think that's easy to see how that could just be one more lament, right? Is like, Cinta's just a lesson for someone else.
Yeah.
No.
For Sam?
For fucking Sam?
For Sam with 2 M's?
Sam with 2 M's?
That's a great point.
Sam with 2 M's. Do you want to hear about what Vel says to Sam with 2 M's?
Of course I do.
This is on you now. She's like, stop crying. This is like skin. You're taking her with you wherever you go for the rest of your useless life.
Real good. Real good stuff.
Kids playing at war, like you said earlier, right? They actually weren't ready. Now they do care. They do believe that they are fighting for something real. And so I guess you could say like, well, is this the way to coach them up? But they're not ready yet, and that is true. Anything else on Ghorman before we head to Coruscant?
No, thank you.
Let's talk some ISB, some Senate and spy politics and parties.
I love
just
a heist.
Another
I love a heist.
Dude, with a pin?
A heist with formal wear. Luthen's
Great
3.
stuff.
It's 3, right? It's Luthen, Clea, and Lonnie. Are we counting Lonnie as one of the 3? It's not Ocean's 11, but it'll do.
I think Lonnie would be like, at
2.5.
most, I'm willing to let you count me as half of a participant. I was very reluctant.
Lonnie's like, please don't include me.
I was very reluctant to move to the left. Man, though, when Clea turns to Lonnie and she's like, we're up, let's prove that you can pass the test, and then he does.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Great stuff, Lonnie.
Great stuff.
Great stuff from Clea. Just really,
dude, Clea
really
rocks.
Good. She rocks.
Clea fucking rocks.
Yeah.
Before we get to the various galas and banquets and Senate events, we do have to have another just day of meetings. A lot of meetings active. I think that Partagast thanking Lonnie, reminding them how the room is meant to function, was exquisite. it's
very
funny.
consistent for Partagast, who when Dedra would sort of speak out in against Blevin or whatever in season 1, he'd be like, "Thank you, Dedra."
Invited it.
Yeah. So Lonnie makes a calculated risk here.
Oh yeah.
He sticks his neck out for 2 people that he then uses as assets and
immediately works them.
Yeah.
Very impressive. We're ingesting data.
Mm-hmm.
12 raids, 3 planets, lots of other numbers are thrown out here. And Partagast replies, who's this we at this buffet of Rebel plunder? And this is my husband's favorite show. It might be number 1 on his Star Wars power rankings by the end of it. I'm not sure I've ever heard him laugh so hard. Ever. As at that line.
Our listener Meg said, now that Karn Corner is a whole house in and of itself in the plot, maybe y'all can replace it with Partagasms, the joy of a well-turned phrase. So Mallory Rubin,
put it on the merch.
I would like to invite you to rank these Partagasms, or at least pick your favorite. Okay.
I mean, this is going to be really hard.
So you've already called out they're inexperienced but eager, how often those attributes align.
Yeah.
We've got here, who is this we at this buffet of Rebel plunder? That was on my list.
Great stuff. Yeah.
we're about to get the one about calibrating.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. But what do you say? Really, it's an assignment. Calibrate your enthusiasm.
That was my favorite. Yeah.
It's hard to beat. But I do want to just put out, we're skeptically confident, sir. And he says words to live by. That's actually my favorite.
The best. He's just the best. Again, a monster. An ISB tyrant.
We don't like fascism.
No, we don't. No. It's a no for us. The performance is so
Simply
fucking
sublime.
good, and the writing is so good.
Yeah.
It's sublime.
Sublime. Hopefully we'll get more partygasms next week. Thank you so much, Meg, for this new bit. I appreciate it.
Incredible. I love that. The bad babies always come through.
They really
Partygasms is so good. We already kind of talked about how Lonnie will work both Legret and Hirt. Anything else?
Here's another one.
Yeah.
It was interesting when Hirt, who was like Dedra's assistant last season, and we were sort of clocking him sort of speaking up a little bit, out of turn in meetings, or like, we were like, does Dedra like this, or does Dedra threatened by this? We weren't sure last season, and now I'm like, she does not like this.
No.
You know, because now he's been promoted and he's given her desk and she is pissed and she's like, you don't call me. I encouraged you.
I am Axis desk, god damn it.
I fucking bred you. What are you doing here?
I love the way she said, there's a lot of scoffing, very effective scoffing across the episodes. I love the scoff, and then,
you've given
me a lot to think about. Great stuff. I mean, this actually, like, I'm not sure if we've said it today. We're out on fascists, but
fascism out.
This made me like Dedra more because
Dedra in.
It's the gall, and this was what Dedra and Partagast discussed last arc, right? It's like, it's going to seem like a demotion. Like, you're going to have to sit there and take it while other people step into the thing you worked for. Now, he had some other feedback on how she handled Axis as well. But, like, her former aide is like, I don't need your fucking help. And she can't be like, let me tell you what's really going on. I'm going to be in a private room with Party later.
Yeah.
We didn't mention that Syril was like on a balcony under a hood feeding them intel. And I'm just like, is his cover intact still? I don't know. I don't know. This was just really great stuff. We already talked about Lonnie and the way that he immediately is like, well, yeah, let's chat about this later. And then, oh, yeah, you can buy me lunch, and really just working the sources very effectively. I think this is very impressive stuff from Lonnie, though I am convinced that he will be found out and killed soon. What did you think of when Lonnie went to report the Dedra Ghorman news to Luthen?
Back on the same elevator?
I thought the scene was really good. I would never have gone there again if I were Andor. It's the setting of the most iconic scene in the show. Don't go back. I honestly can't believe they did it.
Yeah.
I was astonished, but I thought it was really good. But I was wow, the balls to go back to that lift. We talked about this already. Luthen's just like, what? He's totally flummoxed by this, by the Dedra Ghorman reveal. What's the obsession with Ghorman? What are they after? And Lonnie says, I don't know. I'm trying to rethink this all with her in the picture. Now, everybody is clocking the propaganda, but as Luthen says, like, Mira's a hunter, not a spin doctor. I loved that. I loved that summation of her style and the
Lonnie's
nature
like,
of her.
It's very clear they've hired Sterling Draper Cooper Price.
Exactly.
Like, they've got outside
outsourced
help. Yeah.
Too slick for the ISB.
Yeah.
That was just fantastic. And then they talk about the idea of rushing again because Luthen's like, I can't wait this long. And Lonnie says, you used to tell me to wait. Those days are gone. I loved that again as a way to not only show us where Luthen is now, where the rebellion is now, but like how things have changed.
Haven't you heard we only have 8 more episodes? Sorry, 6 more episodes.
Joanna, it's only 6.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not ready to say goodbye.
Let's talk about Senate politics.
This was actually really good, this Mon sequence.
Mon is trying to whip some votes.
Yeah, not succeeding.
Not doing well. Erskine by her side.
Always.
Bucky Barnes pompadour in full effect. she's trying to combat PORD, which is the harsh sentencing that we learned about around Narkina 5.
Yes.
What I love about this, we'll get to, we already talked about some of the other stuff, but like in the Narkina 5 plotline, when Andor goes into Narkina 5 and everyone in there is like, everyone's talking about this, right? Everyone's talking about this. Everyone's really upset about this.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my God, they don't know about this at all. And that's when we got like the nobody is listening.
Yes.
And what I love about this, two things. One, Mon Mothma is listening.
Yes.
And number two, Melshi's like, the people need to know.
Yeah. That was the parting plea
Melshi!
to Cassian.
So somebody knows it's Mon. She's trying to do something, whether or not she's not getting anywhere with it, but like somebody's listening. It's Mon Mothma. She is trying to work inside of the system and finding no luck. And this is like one of those sort of, how does it work inside of the system? Similar, I think, to the Ghorman French resistance is sort of like, what can we do that sort of, won't cause too many waves, but can show the people, like, all Rylance wants to do is like get the evidence to show the people. Once the people see, then they will know. Right. And Sam's like, blasters, maybe, like there's like, what do we do inside of the system versus outside of the system?
Yeah.
And I just think
then what
that,
if you meet the limits of what you can do inside of the system? Like, then what?
So Senator Oren, not great in terms of like, I can't risk chafing the Emperor. Chafe him up. Chafe him good, man.
Chafe him. He's got plenty of skin suits waiting if he gets too chafed.
Gorman's being persecuted so intensely. And I'm not sure linking anything to Ghorman right now is a good idea, is like advice Mon is given. Also, when she talks to a different senator and he says, I believe what I feel. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting in terms of like the propaganda war that's being fought. But then again, it's just sort of like, what are the optics of a place like Ghorman?
Right.
And what will that do to sentiment across the Senate, across the galaxy?
Yeah. And it was so interesting to get, obviously, that's one of the things that Syril and his mother discussed, right? Or Imperial News. My opinions were established long before you went to Ghorman. But so to take it from like a family setting and then into like the actual theater of politics and see where how deeply rooted the parallels are is harrowing and fascinating and obviously eerily reminiscent of certain present circumstances. I thought also, to go back to Star Wars, the like idea that this was emergency legislation, that Palpatine was just gonna like, well, let's just run it back. It's like, has this guy ever done this before? No, guys, it'll just be for a minute.
It's fine.
Then I'll go. Really, really wild stuff.
Last thing before we leave Mon's political career behind for the moment is this is the Palace of Arts in Valencia, Spain, where they filmed this. And I just want to say, shout out the Westworld viewers. They definitely know this location very well.
Oh, that's fun.
I was like, oh, hey, I know you. Look
at that.
Strange white building. I've seen you before. All right, let's do a heist.
It's time for a heist. We talked last week about how one of the things that Tony Gilroy is very upfront about is like, sometimes I got to figure out how to get people into the room I need them to be in.
Yeah.
This is an interesting example of that. A lot of key participants end up in the same place. But it was really fun to watch them get there. Really, really fun to watch them get there. And then even more fun to watch them get out of there. Clea is always on that radio, keeping up on the latest intel, and we learned that they have put this bug on one of the relics, the codex,
antiquities, which is like a fun payoff from the first arc, right?
Yeah, this Davos Golden relationship. They have an incredible argument coming up between Luthen and Clea about whether this was worth doing and anything they learned was useful.
Bug Davos Golden, you said. It'll be fine, you said.
I was like cackling watching this. Like, let's keep making avoidable mistakes. And then she just fired back, let's keep overreacting. And then they're both just like pulling receipts. He's like, I wouldn't be so mad if I hadn't warned you about this. And she's like, here are all the things we learned. Just thought this was fucking exceptional. I love all their scenes together.
Yeah.
And this is where our gal Miri Mazdur comes into play, Mishko. Clea hears there is a forgery in the Golden Collection, and that means the entire collection is going to be subject to a fresh sweep, new review. So they have to get the bug out of there. Hopefully, it's party season.
There's a gala. Let me just say. Clea, we love. We've reiterated this 900 times. We just could not be more pleased with Clea this season.
Fantastic.
I will say the tears in her, she has like, her eyes are watery with like fear of like what is going to happen if the bug is exposed there. And given that it seems like it was her initiative, how that is her fault. Also, this whole heist puts her on the front line in a way that we haven't seen her need to be so far. And I don't know if this is like, because she's been sort of operating things, working the switchboard, you know, but like we watched her meet Vel somewhere, but we haven't had to watch her like do a mission. And so here she is in like
at the wedding, she was like, I'm getting a drink.
Here she is in full like sort of Sydney Bristow on an alias mission mode. And I just like really, what do you put on the line? Like, what are you willing to do? Also, she looks amazing. Fantastic so does Mon. Stuff. Everyone looks amazing.
Great.
But
everyone
like,
does look great. The paparazzi droid looked great. Everyone looks like a great touch. So funny.
Yeah.
So many little details. Like when Skolden is greeting Mon and Perrin and he's like, have you talked to the kids since they're back? And Mon's like, oh yeah, I guess I should. And it's like, okay, so you haven't. Like, you're not speaking.
So they went on a honeymoon. So it's been like a year. And Mon's like,
listen, I'm prepared to recant all of my commentary on the schedule of wedding custom if you get to take a year-long honeymoon. I'm back in.
You're like, I will go on that hike.
They brought me back in.
Yeah, so parents here, but yeah.
Great stuff from great stuff from really everyone in this sequence. I just continue to love how Clea calls Luthen on his bullshit. I really think
in a way that no one else can. So like, what is their relationship?
Right.
Like, how do they come together? How do they know each other? Like,
this is something else I was thinking about recently because we talked about those specific questions a lot in season 1. It's a credit to the show that it is so excellent and deep and fully realized and fully rendered that we happily accept actually like not knowing a lot about the histories of many of these characters in a way that we would not accept in other shows. Because we have so much to fill the space. We feel like we know the true things and the things we need to be able to understand how they behave. But like, wow, what is their history? How do they come into each other's lives? How do they each come to this place in the first place? That was just fascinating. This is where Luthen kind of pulls the Lonnie, right? And he's like, too much to take in. Too much to take in. We're drowning. And you keep pretending it's all under control. It's not all under control. And so I guess it's like heartening in a way that Luthen admits that, but then it makes me anxious when somebody who's happy to send other people into the fire and talk about how brightly it'll burn is also like,
and it's all out of control.
I'm having a hard time remembering what we put where. It's not ideal.
Not great.
Oh, man. A moment we must for this exchange between Perrin and Mon. Not a lot of time for these two, but Perrin's like 80 dinners. We waited so long before we threw our first one. It's tough squeezing a whole year's worth of insincerity into 3 nights, Perrin says. And Mon replies, you'll figure it out. Joe, no one's more prepared to figure out how to be insincere for 3 nights than Perrin.
Can I say one of my favorite comments I saw, I think it was on the subreddit, someone wrote, if they put an embargo on the Ghorman twill, how will Perrin get his Jedi cosplay outfits?
Oh, man. Great question. It is a great question. God.
I had forgot that we talked about how Perrin cosplays as a Jedi at all times. It's just really funny.
I love Perrin. I do. I really do. It's time to converge at the party. Guess who Mon and Perrin pass on their way in?
Someone we've definitely seen before in Star Wars.
It's Bail Organa.
It's Bail Organa.
Played by Benjamin Bratt. Not Jimmy Spitz.
So the story is that Jimmy Spitz had a scheduling conflict.
I found this shocking to not see him as Bail.
To present to the court, even though he just played him in Obi-Wan. I know.
That's the thing. That was so recent.
I was like, how long can we expect Jimmy Spitz to... We were already in Rogue One. We were like...
I know.
So much time has passed.
But
you know what I mean?
He just did it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And like, he is in Rogue One. I don't know. This was very odd. threw me. But also, like, we do often talk about, like, stop feeling like you need to de-age people and just cast a different performer. So maybe I should be celebrating it. I don't know.
Here's what I love about including the Tarkin massacre in all of this. They did not have to include Tarkin. And I don't know if they are going to include Tarkin this season or not, but, like, in terms of the main pushback for Rogue One being the digital version of Tarkin that they did, like,
terrible. Yeah.
Maybe they can just get the actor who plays Hirt, who has the exact same cheekbones,
very similar bone structure,
to play.
Dude, he is otherwise occupied.
Oh yeah,
the Cali coolers.
He's like, as like a low-ranking guy invited to the party. This is so just funny. 10 out of 10. So good.
It was absolutely classics. Like, I'm gonna be back. I can't wait to earn another invite.
Yeah.
He does get to just sort of enjoy himself. Not everyone's got different nights ahead of them, because Legret, besties with Krennic.
Interesting.
It's like, oh, where's your buddy? So this feels like part of the pipeline of information that eventually makes its way to Lonnie, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's where he got that info, do you think, right?
From I can't think of another. I can't think of another.
No. Hirt knows about something
that she
about
has
Dedra.
a different assignment. Yeah, but
and
not
then
what
Legret maybe knows a bit about what's happening in Ghorman. And
that's what it feels like, is that Lonnie, who is good at this, was able to piece that together from his various sources, I think. Clea going up to Lonnie. He's like, what are you doing? She says, pretend we're flirting.
An icon, a legend. I love her.
Takes him in, goes to the codex, pulls the pin off, fires it up, and begins to work the retrieval of the bug. Lonnie is horrified. He's like, do you know who was in this room? We're going to talk about Krennic and Mon in a second, but it's Krennic. Krennic! This is suicide, Lonnie says. I thought the moment where he asked, what would you do? Like, what were you going to do if I wasn't here? And Clea said, anything I had to, was just fucking sick.
She's a baller.
Because you could tell she means it.
Yeah.
And like the literal skin in the game of her bleeding hand as she is doing everything. They're bearing down on her. They're an inch away. She's coaching him through it, moving him left to right, but also making sure he knows what to say to preserve their cover and retracting this thing. This was just like, God,
it was so good.
Life and death.
And again, in that cronut sense, it was so good. And meanwhile, we get a delicious Krennic and Mon interaction happening at the same time. It's not just like rutabaga. There's something happening across the room with some Imperial people. It's fucking Ben Mendelsohn, who we're excited to have in this season of television, here to just sort of like swan about in his capes and just sort of drawl and sneer and just be wonderful and talk about like how ineffectual Mon Mothma's hearings and committees are.
God,
and
so
just
funny.
Like, it's so good. It's wonderful.
I got a chill.
We don't like fascists.
No. Thank you for mentioning it.
You're welcome.
It's good. It's important. I got a chill when Davo, because Mon, brings Luthen in. My history teacher is here with me.
Yeah.
And then when Davo's like, oh, and the Procurer is here tonight, and introduces Luthen to Krennic, I got like a full body chill. It was an incredible moment. And on the Mon Mothma Krennic front, very emblematic to me of the how both things are true. On the one hand, I wish that we had more seasons of the show, and I have no reason not to believe that if we had gotten them, all of them would have been sensational. Yeah. And like to get to see more of those interactions between them, I think would have been riveting. But also, what we got here told us everything we need to know. I
agree. Again, efficiency of storytelling, it's so good. I don't have any, other than like the one we launched about Cinta and Vel, I don't have any complaints about this season. And I understand they took a year to grow a field of rye, or took half a year to like populate the props in a bodega. Like, so much is going into this. They did not want to like drain their life force for somebody. But could we have gotten 3 seasons?
I know.
3 seasons.
That's where I am too. Why not 3?
3 seasons. Not 5, 3? But 3.
As Lonnie said, I doubt there are 3 people in the building who know it. 3. That's the number.
3 seasons. And so I can watch Mon say shit like, how pleasant to see you free of the witness stand more often.
One of the sickest lines.
So
that was just fucking amazing. Yeah. I loved it. I loved watching them go back and forth, and how, Krennic is terrifying. Krennic is terrifying, and Mon stood toe to toe with him and didn't back down. Did not back down at all. And that's like that. We already love Mon and we believe in her and we know that she's incredibly brave. But I thought it was really cool to see the various forms bravery takes for her. There's the bravery of operating in the shadows. There's the bravery of standing in somebody's face and telling them what you think about them. And she does it all. I thought that was really, really cool. Krennic just so entertaining. Like when they get the lesson about the blindness is a gift and he's like, I know someone who would remarkable stuff. They pull it off. What did you think of the moment when Luthen and Cleo were escaping and she hands it over, mission accomplished, and Luthen's like, we probably should have killed Krennic when we were in there, right? This was so like Arya having to explain why she didn't use a jock and kill on the right people coded to me. Like, well, they're going to wonder. They're all going to say it. We should probably have the characters say it.
Yeah, let's lampshade it. Yeah, it was really funny. And then, like, how nice to see them laugh together. That
was great.
Yeah.
That was great.
6 more episodes.
And then another season. I think that was where we landed.
Oh, okay.
They could just go back and do.
Given that they were
the other 6 months,
they have been saying that Rogue One acts as a just do the other 6 months. Okay, I was gonna say they've been talking about how Rogue One could act as like a series finale, like you can just watch Rogue One after the finale, and that would work. But I'm like, I don't know how much air is between. Is it like mere minutes, days?
I'm wondering
how much air is between. Is there going to be footage from Rogue One the finale? Like how much air?
Yeah, does it actually overlap?
Can we insert a season of television between the two? Is a great question I would like to ask you.
I'm in.
Let's do it.
Or just, we can go back in time again and join Leda on her honeymoon. Plenty of options.
Her year-long jaunt around the outer rim. Sounds great. Okay.
Take us back in time and show us them scooping Tay's body.
From the bottom of the ravine. And then Cinta slightly higher up. She didn't have as far to fall, which is why she was only injured, not dead. She got caught in, like, how in like Indiana Jones or other action movies, there's always like a helpful branch on the side of the ravine.
Exactly.
The branch caught Cinta and then Tay went all the way down. That's what happened.
I think that's probably right. Why are there
always branches growing out of the side of ravines?
Listen,
just like one lone branch.
That's a great question. I'm not a topography expert, not a scientist. I can't. So let's add it to the list. We have one more thing for the list. Chris and Andy are going to have a lot to ask Tony Gilroy at the end of the season. I do think it is our duty to convince Chris to ask about this.
If Cinta flipped the car.
Can you imagine if they asked Tony Gilroy? So my colleagues were wondering.
Yeah. I feel like Andy talks to Tony all the time. I feel like I can ask Andy to text him.
Yeah, there you go. Get on it. People might think listening to this that we've been huffing Rhino.
There it is. But it was only 3 and we're already here.
You said it a couple times though. I feel like that's part of the tally.
Oh, you just changed the rules entirely. Well, the Imperial Charter stated that you would not
the intel changes quickly. You have to adapt.
All right.
Let's join.
We're in Dakar.
Saw Gerrera.
Do you want to know a fun fact about this?
Please.
In doing the, they do the establishing shot where there's like a ring of meteoroid debris around the planet. They put potatoes in there as a nod to original Star Wars.
I love it. Yeah. What kind?
Russet?
Taters? What are taters?
What kind do you think are? I mean, like, what do you think? A Yukon Gold?
Boil them, mash them, put them in a stew.
A fingerling?
Oh, a fingerling would be good.
Maybe not make a good asteroid. Yeah. No, you need a russet.
Yeah, great.
Okay, glad we established that. We only have 20 minutes before it's been 3 hours, so let's go.
I think we're ahead of schedule.
I think we're home free, but honestly, not if we stay too long on potatoes.
Good note.
We can't linger in the fingerlings. We gotta go.
Oh my God. Our guy Will is here. Wilmon, the boy. He's there at Saw Gerrera. I've been huffing Rhino. Wilmon is here, and he is presenting a device that requires real skill to use, and it is
depending on the setting of the place where you are.
A lot of variations. You got to carry all the primes.
Yeah.
Sounds like a math thing. I don't know.
I'm not a mathematician.
Add it to the list. Not a mathematician. I think that might have been on the list already, actually.
I'm sure it was.
It's a drill. It's for plundering Rhydonium. Now, Rhydonium is present across many swaths of the Star Wars canon, has appeared in a number of different properties. Very recently featured in the Mayfeld Din heist in a Mandalorian episode. But for the animated Star Wars heads, this is just like very prevalent across both Clone Wars and Rebels. There are frequent attempts to steal Rhydonium because it's very volatile, as we hear, but also like this is the fuel for starships, and so it is like an incredibly valuable thing. And also, if you were seeking to foster rebellion, you need fuel, so it comes into play quite often.
Here's a normal thing
for Huffin until here.
Here's a normal thing to say.
Yeah,
work up a thirst, find a vein, take what you want when you want it. He also says pipe poacher. Is he there? Yeah. Are they stealing? He says pipe poacher. So are they stealing from Rhydo reserves, or are they fracking? They're stealing from other reserves, right?
Yeah. Yes. They're hitting stations, like the fuel reserves.
So when he says find a vein, he just means actually a not a vein in the earth of natural gas, but just like
yes.
He just wanted,
I think so.
Okay,
I believe so.
Do you think Saw Gerrera lost his leg because of space diabetes due to Rhydo inhalation?
This introduces so many questions about the state we find him in Rogue One.
Because if you don't recall, we find him in Rogue One. He's lost a leg that he currently has, and he's on a ventilator. Is he huffing Rhydo? Like, is it a Blue Velvet moment? Is he huffing Rhydo through the ventilator in Rogue One, or is he on a ventilator because he's
destroyed his lungs?
Too much Rhydo. People thought we would see like a great battle scene where Saw Gerrera loses his leg and gets put on a ventilator. But what if it's just the drugs, man?
This is, I think, so much better. This is just fantastic. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you love the smell of it. Maybe you breathe just a little too deeply, burn from the inside.
You watch your skin blister as it melts. Like, this seems like a deeply uncool high to me.
I know. This seems bad. This seems really bad. The fact that this is clearly part of like the creed under which he is ruling the partisans is like, guys, we're going to go drink our Rhydo. I'm like, was blistering skin part of the recruitment pitch? I don't want it.
Or you die loud.
I don't want it.
I don't want it.
I don't want it.
Do you think tubes can huff Rhydo given the tube situation?
Great question.
Yeah. I have questions about that. Let's ask Tony.
Maybe he's going liquid.
Slurping Rhydo?
Tony. Can you chime in, Tony? Let it spill. Don't even need a spark. Do ya, boy? Do ya? Boom! Just fantastic stuff.
Really
Will's like just kind of keeping quiet, taking it all in, processing. He will not tell Saw. You mentioned earlier who taught you this? Where'd you learn? Now we know. And Luthen is kind of alluded to. Will's like, you can't keep me here. This was negotiated. Pluty says, how are you going to explain his absence? Oh, there are accidents. Will is part of the Luthen squad, but I'm with you. I think this, based on what we saw in season 1, this idea of learning, we hear Pluty say, good engineer, maybe even a great one, that came from his father on Ferrix. Yeah. I think the fact that he won't say anything about that history because it's private, it's his personal motivation, but also won't say anything, obviously, about Luthen or anyone else. Saw sees something there he likes, right? You're going to stay quiet. And I think that Will belongs with Saw. I think this is a match made in heaven. I think we don't agree on this.
What has Will done to deserve Saw Gerrera?
I think that they have. I mean, he's like, he gave me one pretty intense speech and I'm going to rip my mask off and breathe in the Rhydo I'm in.
Here's a follow-up question. Here's a follow-up question about tubes. Yeah. Do you think tubes is just always huffing Rhydo?
Oh, could be.
Always be huffing? That's the tubes motto? Okay.
I think when he was just like, transmitter! sure, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it. But I think that there are real parallels in Will and Saw's past. You know, when we get to the extraction a little bit later, and we hear Saw talk about Onderon, he uses the word sister. We're going to get to some of that in a minute. But like the idea of this formative loss that set Saw on the path to be not just a rebel, but an extremist. I think like we have not forgotten that Will builds a bomb and throws it into a town square in season 1. Like,
and
I think he's got that extremist blood
great.
in him.
Okay, great point. Do you want to, for our listeners at home who have not watched Rebels or Bad Batch or Clone Wars, give them like a summation of Saga, like how we got here with this maniac Saga era?
The most important thing you need to know, Saw is present across many comic books, animated properties. He's present across the canon. He's in Rebels, in Clone Wars, and Bad Batch,
which take place in his
earlier.
Youth.
He's just so fucking hot. I don't think this is what you meant when you asked me to talk about his past, but I'm
not surprised.
As a on the record, Star Wars cartoons can be really hot. Shout out animated Obi-Wan, animated Saw. Quite handsome. Really looked great. So there's a great Clone Wars stretch set on Onderon. Anakin's there. Ahsoka's there. The separatist hold on Onderon. We hear Saw talk here about being a prisoner, about the jungles, about the Rhydo leak. But Saw and his sister Steela were part of mounting a rebellion to challenge separatist rule of their home world. And spoiler for Clone Wars, his sister does not make it through. She is killed. And throughout the rest of Saw's arc, I mean, he's carrying a hollow of her picture the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like she is the North Star for him as he forms the partisans and mounts his version. He is fighting the Empire in her name.
With love and respect to Saw and some of his tactics.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of revolutions you need a Saw or you know a counter to Mon Mothma. Like this, he's pitched as a counter to Mon Mothma.
They are opposed.
Yeah. Where do you think he lost the plot? At what point? Was it his very first huff of Rhydon? Like, was it the moment his sister died?
Yeah, I think it was way back when.
Do you think like if Order 66 hadn't happened and the Empire hadn't happened, like he could have been a leader and something like this, but it was just sort of like sent him back to his youth and losing his sister and stuff?
I think it's a really good question. I think that like, not a mathematician as mentioned earlier, I think like Saw feels to me like a character defined by exponential paths where, you know, a couple things happen and then the way that those have a bearing on his behavior and his decisions moving forward. Like I won't get into in case anybody is like, oh, I'm really excited to Saw's and Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels. I want to go watch all of it. Any place you pick, you're going to see something disturbing. Any place. And by the time you get to Rebels, I mean, there's some harrowing shit that he is doing. And even though, and again, like we love talking about the debate between Saw and Luthen in season 1, this idea that they are, and you know, I'm just describing Saw and Mon as opposed, like they're all fighting for the same thing, the rebellion, defeating the Empire, but they're doing it in very different ways.
Yeah.
Saw's approach,
he's basically like really, no half measures.
Yes. Yeah. And like the full measure, it's blistering skin for him, right? It's like you take the mask off and you put your head in the Rhydon steam. Like there's all the way and then there's beyond all the way and then there's where Saw is. And for him, that's the only way, which like a number of different characters give us, again, their version of that. Like everyone has their own rebellion. So I think Saw is like an incredible character. And obviously this is a wonderful performance. And I think the other thing, you know, I love that you mentioned kind of like the physical ailments that are on display in Rogue One. But another thing that obviously is really central in Rogue One with Saw is the paranoia. Nice. And that's also present throughout. But like
deception.
Lies, deception, Bogolet. How can we not be thinking of that with what happens here with Pluty? You know, Will teaches Pluty. Pluty's like, I'd prefer you not kill him. When Saw says, all right, you're good to go. You got the variations. I'm going to get rid of him. And then basically says like, I'd have the confidence you need if you told me where we were going and saw deduces from this that Pluty is a spy. Has tubes pull out the transmitter.
I think Pluty is a spy.
I think so too. I agree. I think Pluty being like, I need you to tell me exactly where we are going is probably an example of where Saw was right. But I think because it's Saw, we sort of always have to wonder the fact that he didn't ask him. Now, maybe it wouldn't have mattered what he said. He just shot him in the fucking head.
Do you think Pluty would have been like, why, yes, I am a spy. How clever of you to deduce it, Saw Gerrera.
Maybe.
Notable level-headed guy.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. I really liked the way that Will snapped the little back spine off the Mastiff and was just like, it was like a Slim Jim. The way he's just chomping on that as he watched them talk. I thought this was all very interesting. Saw says it's on you, boy. No more Pluty. Will's got to do it. I thought the overlaying of Saw's speech, yet another example of where something is physical is happening while we hear something, with Will actually like clicking the gears into place, and we know how high stakes it is. We know Saw's making it out, but still, I was like, my heart was racing watching him work the gauge. I just thought that was incredible.
I was like, let him fucking concentrate.
I know. I was like, dude, he's got a lot that he's focusing on. So we get his origin story, and then we hear a couple other, frankly, I think just incredible things. I understand it because she's my sister, Rhydon, and she loves me again. Sister Steela feels very intentional, that close to the Onderon mention.
My sister Rhydon.
My sister Rhydon.
She loves me.
Gonna huff her up. You think I'm crazy? Yes, I am. Revolution is not for the sane. Look at us, unloved, hunted, cannon fodder. We'll all be dead before the Republic is back, and yet here we are. Now, Luthen said, I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. That was part of the great speech in episode 10 last season. And that's the same idea. A number of people who are at the forefront of this charge don't expect to make it to the other side. But they do it anyway. Saw?
It's a great speech.
I love it.
Vel and Saw just dropping bars in these episodes. Really incredible stuff.
I love it. We're the Rhydon kid. We're the fuel. We're the thing that explodes when there's too much friction in the air. That was me as Will. Taking my first huff.
I would say not even once.
That's freedom calling.
Rhydon?
No, not once. You wouldn't try it once?
Not even once.
No.
We're the
Rhydon try
kid
everything once person.
No.
We're the right, but I do love that as it clocks perfectly with everything we know. This is how Saw thinks about revolution, right? Revolution is the thing that explodes. Like revolution is the thing that melts your skin away.
Are you worried about Will? How do you feel?
I'm basically worried about everyone who I have not seen in the film Rogue One.
So
pretty much.
Saw, you're fine. You're a maniac, but you're fine. Mon, you're fine.
Yep.
Cassian Andor, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's it. Bail Organa, you're fine. That's it.
All right, Bail's good. Recast, but fine.
But fine.
I like the idea of Will surviving. But it's a short list of people I would say I'm confident are going to make it through.
Is there anyone who's not in Rogue One that you feel like there's no way this person dies?
Good question. Dedra?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dedra's going to make it.
I think so.
Tough shit, Syril Karn.
Edie?
Oh, Edie should make it. Edie's a cockroach. She should make it.
Edie's eternal. Yeah. I'm sure if we revisit
Edie
Rise
Karn.
of Skywalker, we can find Edie there.
Somehow, Edie Karn returned.
Joe, we did it. Did we make it under 3?
We did.
Wow. To the minute of last week, I think. Wild. All right. Thank yous. Different crew today.
Great crew this week.
John Richter is here, as always. Thank you, John. Kai Grady's here with us today. Kai stepping in. Yeah, guys. Yeah. I love you. I love House of Our Happy Top. Wait, the pod is going to be how long? It's an assignment. Calibrate your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's what Kai said to us when he heard what the runtime was likely to be.
I hope Kai made himself a snack.
Cameron Dinwiddie back with us again to help with the video edit today.
Thanks,
Arjuna
Cameron.
Ramgopal, obviously, as always, production supervision, and Jomia Deneron helping with the social, as always. That's it, Joe. That's all
We'll
we
be back
got
so soon with Thunderbolts.
tomorrow. Wild. Thank you for reminding us how this pod is meant to function, Joanna. That was a partygasm.
I
before we go.
know. One
You're the
partygasm
best.
before leaving. Bye.